Chapter 1846. Space cracked, the wind howled. Violent energy filled the air like electric arcs. 3 figures stood in a triangle. Powerful aura filled their bodies, causing the space around them to tremble. From the scene of heaven and earth collapsing, there should have been a fierce battle here. Satisfying. Jun Changxiao grinned. Right now, he was sitting on top of a broken meteorite. If there was a jar of wine next to him, his level would be raised. 1 against 3. Gosheng was not weak at all. The 3 Night King Alliance combatants' expressions became gloomy. To get rid of this evil person, they didn't hesitate to put down their pride and fight him with numbers, but they didn't get the upper hand. You can't win against me, Jun Changxiao advised. Let's just forget about it. Brat, don't be arrogant. The sword cultivator suddenly threw out his sword. His hands quickly formed hand seals. His long hair and robe fluttered as he shouted. 9 Heavens Sword shocking change. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As if heaven and earth had fallen. A sword aura that could swallow mountains and rivers erupted, quickly covering the sword in the air, causing it to expand and become like a mountain peak in space. Old Crane is using his killing move. This move, Hanging Sword of the 9 Heavens, is even more powerful than before. The other 2 combatants were shocked. As friends, as colleagues, let's not talk about whether the sword move was stronger than before. They should at least praise each other. TCH. Jun Changxiao laughed in disdain. He had already used this sword as a mountain peak move so many times. Fine. Jun Changxiao stood up, summoning Extreme Immortal Sword. Today this seat will show you what a sword move is. Xiao he flew up, the sword hovering in space. Whoosh. A powerful sword aura appeared around Jun Changxiao, enveloping Extreme Immortal Sword, then turned into a hammer and loudly sang. Thunder. This heavenly cultivation, heaven collapsing earth-shattering purple golden hammer. It's over, the system said. Instant kill. Why did it say that? Because as soon as the host opens his mouth, let alone the heavens, even the samsara wouldn't be able to handle it. However, the system's toxic healer was at work again. When Jun Changxiao shouted the word hammer, the 3 Night King Alliance elites remained where they were, as if they were not affected by the music at all. As expected, that's just a joke. Facing a true expert, one's state of mind cannot be shaken at all. The speed at which the system changed its mind was simply incomparable. Of course, Jun Changxiao did not intend to use his voice to instantly kill his opponent. His original intention was to use his sword Dao to subdue his opponent. Hoo-hoo. Hoo-hoo-hoo. The hammer-like sword Qi smashed over with a loud bang, and in the most overbearing and destructive way, it blasted the so-called 9 Heavens Sword startling transformation into smithereens. Pooh. The sword cultivator from Night King Alliance coughed up blood, and was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Old Crane. Swish sword light flashed, cutting through thousands of miles. The 2 experts from Night King Alliance looked over, and saw that Jun Changxiao was already standing in front of the sword cultivator, who was sent flying. The Zenith Immortal Sword was placed on his neck, and he said coldly, "Do you submit?" The sword cultivator did not say anything, because his sword technique was broken, and he suffered a backlash. "And you guys," Jun Changxiao said. "If you don't want him to die, hurry up and put down your weapons and surrender." The 2 experts from Night King Alliance had ugly expressions on their faces, but they still obediently dispersed their cultivation. Jun Changxiao was speechless in his heart. These 3 should be righteous people who are going against the Sky Devil Emperor. I can casually threaten one of them and make them submit. Their actions are as if they are retarded. Rely on them to save the universe. The system's evaluation was, there's no chance at all. Although Jun Changxiao had only met the Sky Devil Emperor once, and it was just a clone, he was sure that this person was not an ordinary villain. If the righteous side did not have any extraordinary people, fighting against him would be equivalent to courting death. From the looks of it, that Night King Alliance was probably not up to the task. So, the system said, saving the universe is such a difficult task, but it still depends on the host to complete it. With the reputation value, refresh the store more. Scram. Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. 3 experts from the Night King Alliance were locked up. Area, Zhao Daodu, and Dai Lu thought that business had come again, and hurriedly began to prepare all kinds of props. In the end they were warned by Jun Changshao. You must treat the three of them well. The prison trio could only silently withdraw the soul-suppressing whip, the red candle, and the immortal binding rope. Actually, this was just a misunderstanding. Jun Changshao believed that time would let them understand that he was not an evil person. Brat. The leader of the experts said angrily. Night King will not let you off easily. Night King? Jun Changshao was interested. He sat on the chair and asked with a smile. Who is it? Night King Alliance leader. Another person proudly said. The only existence in the upper universe who dares to fight against your master, the Sky Devil Emperor. There is a need to clarify again. Jun Changshao said. I am not the Sky Devil Emperor's subordinate, I am his enemy. Umph. The injured sword cultivator sneered. You drive a warship that only the Sky Devil Emperor has, and you say you are not his subordinate. Do you really think we are idiots? You can't blame them for being idiots. The main thing was that the Eternal Ship was too similar to the Sky Devil Emperor's warship. Innocent martial artists would not have such a thing. Jun Changshao was too lazy to explain and asked. Where is the Night King Alliance? This was the first time he learned that the so-called Night King Alliance leader was the only existence that could fight against the Sky Devil Emperor. Regardless of whether the other party was bragging or not, the enemy of an enemy was a friend. If there was a chance, he could make friends with them. This was also the reason why he had to treat the three prisoners well. Otherwise, instead of becoming friends, they would become enemies. Trying to get information? The leader sneered. Wishful thinking. Jun Changshao was speechless. It seems that in your eyes I am the same as the Sky Devil Emperor. Forget it, forget it. Shaking his head, he said. Now that the three of you have become prisoners, if you want to live, why don't you quickly inform your alliance leader to pay the ransom? Not to mention the location? Sure. I have many ways to get your alliance leader to come over. Unless he did not care about the lives of the three divine mysteries. Brat. The leader said coldly. A lackey like you is not qualified to meet our alliance leader. Jun Changshao stood up, took the soul-subduing whip from area, kicked open the cell door, and walked in angrily. If I don't torture you today, you will not know why the flowers are so red. Pa pa pa. Pa pa pa. Ah. Ow ow ow. The sound of the whip and howling in the cell rose and fell one after another. Zhao Daodu and Dai Lv sat outside. One was cracking melon seeds while the other was eating peanuts. Zhao Daodu said, Ha, didn't we agree to treat the three of them well? Why did Sect Master do it herself? Study. After torturing the three Night King Alliance powerhouses, Jun Changshao lay comfortably on the chair, but his expression gradually became serious. From the conversation just now, he realized two problems. First, his Eternal Ship was similar to the Sky Devil Emperor's battleship. Although this was known for a long time, the main point was that the battleship was snatched from the Star Spirit world. No need to think about it. The system said. The Sky Devil Emperor and the Star Spirit world must be openly colluding. Second, this Night King Alliance seemed to be righteous, which meant that other than himself, there were other forces in the upper universe that were rebelling against the Sky Devil Emperor. Quickly contact them. The system said. One more layer of power, one more layer of confidence. Night King. Jun Changshao shook his head and said. In the end he is only a king. My sect of all times has the Emperor. In terms of title, we are definitely better than him. Emperor? Who was that? Night Emperor, courtesy name Xingqian. Chapter 1847. A certain system, a certain world. A mountain shrouded in clouds and mist was moving slowly. There were buildings and pavilions on it, giving people a very awe-inspiring feeling. Why was the mountain moving? Because this mountain was being dragged by a giant turtle beast. Any overlord with good eyesight would immediately realize that this was the mountain-moving Saint Turtle, which was extremely rare in the upper universe. It was as rare as the Kuan. Boom, 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 boom. The mountain-moving Saint Turtle moved very slowly, but every move it made could make the mountain collapse. This beast wouldn't appear in the mortal world. It only existed in the wild, so even if it caused a huge commotion, it wouldn't bring disaster to living beings. Some people would even pray to the mountain-moving Saint Turtle by chance, hoping to be protected by it. No. More accurately, they hoped to be protected by the mountain. This started from the signboard in front of the mountain gate, which had the words Night King Alliance. That's right. This moving mountain carried by the mountain-moving Saint Turtle was where the Night King Alliance was located, which Jun Changshao had asked about earlier. Ever since the Sky Demon Emperor caused trouble in the upper universe, this alliance was born, and was even seen as a savior by the entire upper universe. The Sect of all times was also a savior, but it was only limited to the Ashcloud system, and hadn't spread to other systems. May the Night King protect our Dark Earth realm from the Sky Devil Emperor. The mountain-moving Xian tortoise slowly walked past, and an old man piously put his palms together. He came here from another plane, hoping to be protected by the Night King Alliance. Coo, 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 coo. Suddenly, the sound of a pigeon sounded in the sky. Then, a beam of light flew across the sky and landed in an elegant bamboo forest in the moving mountain. It was a golden pigeon. Its eyes blinked, and it looked very intelligent. So noisy. A sloppy middle-aged man walked out barefoot from the bamboo house. Every step he took created a tornado. Whoosh. He stopped under a tree and called the golden pigeon down. He pulled a long face and said, "Spit it out. I still want to sleep." Coo, 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 coo. The golden pigeon chirped in the bird language. The expression on the middle-aged man's face gradually changed from sleepy to solemn. Then, he leaped up and flew towards the incomparably majestic hall in front of him. He hurriedly walked in and said, "Alliance Master, Old Li and Old He are in trouble." Swish. Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, several streams of light flew over from the other mountain peaks. There were charming women, cultured and refined scholars, and old men with eyes like torches. Although their appearances and clothes were different, all of them had strong auras. It was obvious that their strength was extraordinary. Who did it? Do you still need to guess? It must be the demonic emperor. Looks like this guy wants to shed all pretense of cordiality with my Night King Alliance. So be it. I've been pissed off at that guy for a long time. As long as the Night King gives the order, I'll kill my way to his lair. You can beat the Celestial Devil Emperor. We have to fight even if we can't beat him. We can't just let him wreak havoc on the universe. The crowd stood in the main hall and discussed. The overall atmosphere was rather indignant. Obviously, they had already blamed the Celestial Demonic Emperor for the accident of their companions. Of course. After all, he still had to listen to the Alliance Master. "Greetings, Night King." Everyone cupped their fists and shouted. Shwa. The black shadow sat down. Because it was shrouded by the black attribute, it was difficult to see its appearance clearly. It gave off a mysterious feeling. So did the Celestial Devil Emperor. Feelings, as long as one had power, one had to maintain a sense of mystery. Kuei 3. The Night King said. "Go to Tsangyun and investigate." His voice sounded normal. It was neither cold nor hoarse. It was a very ordinary tone. Me. The barefoot man was speechless. Third brother might be barefooted all day long, but he's famous for being as fast as lightning in the upper universe. If you don't go, who will? The beautiful woman smiled. She could be said to be extremely charming. The Sky Devil Emperor is currently conquering the major planes of the Tsangyun system. What if we meet him? Kuei-sen asked. Let's fight. The red-haired, bare-chested man said. Kuei 3 was speechless. If I had skin as thick as yours, I'd definitely fight the Sky Devil Emperor to the end. Go. The Night King interrupted the two. Don't waste time. Okay. Kuei 3 said. I'll go now. With that, he turned and left. Wait. The Night King stopped him. On the way, use this king's name to visit the ruins of Sword Saint. I hope he'll consider joining the Night King Alliance for the sake of the world. There's no hope. The gentle scholar shook his head. The ruins of Sword Saint has been in seclusion for many years. Unless the Sky Devil Emperor provokes him, he won't easily come out. These old antiques are too pedantic. The Sky Devil Emperor is committing crimes in the universe, but they're all just watching. The beautiful woman said angrily. Sigh. The scholar said helplessly. There are too many people in this world who only care about themselves and don't care about the frost on their roof. They don't know that when disaster strikes, no one will truly be able to protect themselves. So, the beautiful woman looked at the Night King with admiration. At the time of crisis, the Alliance Master appeared. With him leading us, we'll definitely be able to defeat evil and return the universe to its former glory. Everyone nodded in agreement. To be precise, it was because they could see that the Night King was an extraordinary person that these top powerhouses who could hold their own in the upper universe would follow his lead. Wuxia 3 flew out alone from the moving mountain, heading in the direction of the ash cloud system. The Night King stood outside the hall. His face was shrouded in darkness as a pair of strange eyes appeared. He seemed to be thinking about something, but also seemed to be conflicted about something. Sect of all times. Jun Changxiao was sitting in his study, studying He Wudi's martial arts secret manual when Yi Xingqian came in with a serious expression. What's wrong? Patriarch. This disciple heard that the 3 captured called themselves the Night King Alliance? Yi Xingqian's expression became even more serious. You've heard of this faction? Night Emperor was silent. He had never heard of the Night King Alliance in reality, but in the illusion of the Sky Spill domain, he had heard of the Night King, and was even the Night King himself. Even an idiot could see that the Night King and the Night King Alliance were related. Xingqian. Jun Changxiao sensed something and asked, Is there something on your mind? Patriarch, wait. Jun Changxiao hurriedly interrupted him when he saw that he was about to speak his mind. He ordered Lu Wanshi to prepare a table full of sumptuous dishes, and then arranged several jars of drunken dreams. Only then did he wave his hand and said, Come, please tell me your story. Yi Xingqian's mouth twitched. At this moment, there was not only the patriarch in the study, but also Elder Ryu Sinan, Gong Sunho, Hall Master Elder Wei, Li Luoqiu, senior brothers Li Qingyang and Su Xiaomo. They surrounded the table with bowls and chopsticks in front of them. They were all staring at him as if they were here to listen to his thoughts. Junior brother. Xiaomu said, We are worried about you. Be brave and say it. Chapter 1848. Pa. Ka. In the study, Ryu Sinan, Gong Sunho, and the others were eating sunflower seeds while listening to Yi Xingqian's story. They were very serious and serious. Finished? Finished. Jun Changxiao fell silent. It turns out that my disciple went to the Sky Spill domain, and not only did he have an accident with a girl called Jie Lingyao, he also hid a secret of entering an illusion. What do you all think? Pa. Ryu Sinan finished the sunflower seeds and chewed on the skin. Patriarch, there must be something wrong with this. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes. Could it be just an illusion? Coincidentally, it met reality? Gong Sunho said. Impossible. Ryu Sinan said. It's definitely not that simple. He paused and said, In the upper universe there are many ways to predict the future. Perhaps what was left in the illusion is a fragment of the future. Yi Xingqian might really inherit the Night King Alliance in the future, and become the leader of the alliance. I think so too. Jun Changxiao nodded. Actually, what he cared about was not whether Yi Xingqian would inherit the Night King Alliance in the future. He was more curious about who left the fragment of the future behind. To be able to pass down the events of the future through an illusion was definitely not something that an ordinary person could do. Patriarch. At this moment Yi Xingqian said, There's one more thing I didn't say. Speak, Jun Changxiao said. Yi Xingqian hesitated for a moment before saying, According to the illusion, I will eventually leave the sect of all times. Boom. Suddenly, there was an ear-piercing thunder outside. Jun Changxiao and the others were all experts, but they could not help but be shocked by the sudden noise. Ugh. Su Xiaoma, who happened to be eating, was so shocked that he vomited on the spot. What's going on? Gong Sunho stood up and said in surprise, Why would there be thunder on such a calm day? Jun Changxiao was also very surprised by this. As the dominator of the eternal world, he could control the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. However, The frightening thunder just now was completely out of the natural laws of the weather. It was as if it had appeared out of nowhere. Could it be? Ryu Sinan picked up a melon seed and put it in his mouth. His expression gradually turned serious as he said, "Did Yi Xingqian say that the heavenly secrets were revealed?" Revealed the secrets of heaven? Jun Changxiao's expression turned serious. Don't say it. Come to think of it, it was really very similar to what was shown in the TV series. This was definitely a sign of leaking heavenly secrets and being struck by lightning. And then? Jun Changxiao asked. Disciple, is married, and has a child. It took a lot of courage for Yi Xingqian to say these words. It also showed that he truly regarded everyone as a patriarch and treated everyone as family. That's right. Gong Sunho said firmly. It must be a coincidence. Given his character, how could he marry and have a child? Although his words were relatively straightforward, they were unanimously agreed by everyone. There were two straight men in the sect. One was Yi Xingqian, and the other was... No, the patriarch seemed to have changed a lot recently. The frequency of him pruning the roses in the madam's courtyard had also increased. Jun Changxiao did not think it was so simple. He asked, who did he marry? Yi Xingqian was silent for a long time and said, Jie Lingyao. Boom. Before his voice died away, the thunder sounded again. This time, the sound was louder than before. Everyone's eardrums were buzzing. Even if they had not eaten, they still had the urge to vomit. Jun Changxiao's expression became more serious. He was sure that the thunder did not come from the natural system of the eternal world. It seemed to directly penetrate the space barrier from the outside world. If he had to explain, it might be, yes. The system said for him, the power of Heaven Wei. That means, Jun Changxiao said seriously, what Xingqian said is true. It's hard to say. The system said, there are so many things in the universe. There are many variables and coincidences. Maybe this Night King is not the Night King. I believe it. According to the system's poison healing ability, Jun Changxiao chose to believe in Yi Xingqian. He also believed that this scene could happen in the future. Patriarch. Yi Xingqian stood up and said firmly, Today, I swear in front of the elders and my fellow disciples that I will not leave the sect of all times no matter if I live or die. If I break my promise, I will. No need to say more. Jun Changxiao handed over a bowl of wine and said, It's all in the wine. Come on. Don't just stand there. Eat what you want and drink what you want. Yes. Everyone did not stand on ceremony. Patriarch. At this time Li Tiantian ran in and said hurriedly, Hall Master Z was drying clothes in the courtyard and was struck by lightning twice. He has been sent to the medical hall. Everyone almost choked. Yi Xingqian swore. How could he be struck by lightning? Nighttime. As usual, Jun Changxiao went to the courtyard where rows of flowers lived to trim the flowers and plants. Needless to say, he was so skilled that it made people envious. What's going on with Xingqian? Rows of Flowers walked out of her room and sat in the pavilion. You know? Yes. Needless to say, it must be Big Mouth Su who spread it. Jun Changxiao straightened the branches that he had cut and sat on the bench in the pavilion. One of his legs dangled on the bench. He looked up at the starry sky and said, Is there really a powerful person who can predict the future in this world? If you believe it, there is. If you don't, there isn't, Rose of Flowers said. Xingqian believes it, Jun Changxiao said. Otherwise he wouldn't be in a hurry to make the oath. Rose of Flowers said, The sect of all times has an atmosphere that other forces don't have. As long as a disciple is truly integrated, he won't accept the fact that he will leave in the future. It's not that I don't want to see a disciple leave, but... Jun Changxiao shrugged bitterly and said, Children will eventually grow up and have families and careers. As a parent, I can only learn to let go. If Yi Xingqian really left one day, Gosheng would not urge him to stay, because everyone had their own path to walk. How could they be encircled by others forever? For example, Su Xiaoma. Previously, when he took Xia Shuiyin away from the sect to live a peaceful life, Jun Changxiao did not urge him to stay. Instead, he fully supported him. After painstakingly cultivating his disciple, he did not want to use him as a tool. He wanted him to be able to walk his own path and live his own life when the time was right. Of course. Jun Changshao said with a cold gaze. If someone forces my disciple to leave with ill intentions, even if it really happens in the future, I will go against the heavens and change my fate. Rose of Flowers said. No matter what happens in the future, I will stay by your side and never leave you. With a wife like this, what more can I ask for? Jun Changshao stood up and walked over step by step. Just as the two were about to face each other, the eternal world suddenly shook. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao transmitted her voice. The eternal world is being attacked by an unknown object. Swoosh. Jun Changshao appeared in the cockpit. He first looked at the starry sky map and found that there was no light spot. Boom. Boom. At this moment, the battleship was fiercely bombarded and swayed like a lonely boat in the sea. Jun Changshao hurriedly released his spiritual thoughts. He was shocked when he saw that near the eternal world, in this starry sky, layers of flowing light gradually appeared. There were at least hundreds of thousands of battleships. From the shape that he could barely see, it was obviously the heavenly demon emperor's battleships. Jun Patriarch. A cold voice came from the huge battleship. The game of hide-and-seek ends here. Chapter 1849. What was to come would come. Jun Changshao was trapped in a corner of the universe by celestial demon emperor's subordinates. When he chose to fight against them and destroyed a few fleets, this scene would happen sooner or later. It was just a matter of time. The delivery ship is here, the system said. Jun Changshao gathered his emotions and roared. Is this a delivery ship? At this moment, there were more than 1,000 warships surrounding Eternal. Not to mention the terrifying aura. Just the scene alone was frightening enough. If there were only a few dozen of them, Gosheng would have the confidence to take them down. But now, other than the feeling of being unable to escape, there was nothing else. From this, it could be seen that Celestial Demon Emperor was very cautious. He did not send batches of his subordinates to deliver treasures. Instead, even if it was just to get rid of a fly, he would spare no effort to turn it into ashes. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao said. What should we do? Run. Jun Changshao would definitely not fight head-on. After all, it was not in line with guerrilla tactics. Besides, with so many warships, how many soldiers would be hidden? If they used the human wave tactic, it would be over. Shengguan Xinyao seemed to have turned into an experienced driver. She controlled the steering wheel and used extreme space drift to change the direction, and rushed out of the weak encirclement. Because it was too sudden and the impact of the warship was too great, Jun Changshao's entire face hit the wall. Everyone's eyes were filled with pain. They were not feeling pain for the patriarch, but for the wall that was hit. Whoosh. In space, under Shengguan Xinyao's extreme control, Eternal flew at the fastest speed, and at the most tricky angle toward the area that was still considered a weak point at the moment. Don't talk about it. Every disciple of the sect of all times was talented. There was Jingji who had maxed out her talent in mecha piloting, and Shengguan Xinyao who had maxed out her piloting skills. If they were not named after the readers, they would have thought of being a couple. But thinking about it carefully, a disciple who cleaned the toilet was not worthy. Jun Patriarch. A gloomy voice came from the main warship. You can't escape today. Ka-ka. Ka-ka-ka. With that, cannon-like weapons appeared on the thousands of warships and locked onto the flying Eternal. Fire. Boom 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 boom. Various streams of light and cannonballs instantly pressed down from all directions. The momentum was so great that it shook the space. Beep beep beep. Beep beep beep. Thousands of streaks of light appeared on the star map. This represented cannonballs and streams of light, and the degree of envelopment could be said to be densely packed. Shengguan Xinyao was very calm. She placed one hand on the control panel and gently closed her eyes. The image of the star chart appeared in her sea of consciousness and began to evolve crazily. Swish. He waved his right hand. Eternal moved to the side and successfully dodged the attack. Swish. Swish. Shengguan Xinyao, who was driving with her eyes closed, used her powerful calculation ability to find flaws in the streamer shells. The seemingly clumsy Eternal danced in the rain of bullets like a fairy. Too strong. Su Xiaoma and the others exclaimed. Little Du, who was hidden among the disciples, couldn't help but sigh. The more outstanding Shengguan Xinyao is, the more unworthy Jingji seems. Jun Changshao stabilized his body and looked through the window at the stream of light brushing past him. His lips curled up into a smile. True technology. It could only be shown in actual combat. At this moment, the warship suddenly shook. Due to a mistake, the tail was bombarded. It wasn't a big problem. The hull itself was protected by a barrier. As long as it wasn't bombarded, it could maintain normal operation. At this time, Shengguan Xinyao took advantage of the moment when Eternal was tilting to hit the accelerator button. The energy drive system instantly exploded, and the turbine roared. The tail of the ship spewed out a dazzling light as it sped toward a certain area. How fast? In the blink of an eye, they killed their way out of the encirclement. How is this possible? The captain's expression gradually turned sluggish. Eternal was clearly a modified warship of the same type, and he was the most familiar with its performance and speed. However, the acceleration just now was completely beyond his comprehension. How was it so fast? Don't ask. If you did, it would be the modification of the old Taixian. All in all, as long as the warship and mecha suddenly had a godly performance, it would definitely not be without the efforts of this Grand Elder. No wonder he was the strongest bug-fixing king in the sect of all times. Chase. Don't let them escape. Xiao. Thousands of warships instantly turned around. But it was too late. Eternal had already disappeared in the endless universe, and even the designated star map had no light spots. Captain. That warship is gone. Boom. The captain slammed his hand on the armrest, his eyes filled with anger. To be honest, he had discovered Eternal long ago. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he had been hiding in the dark until he mobilized all his forces to block it in a corner. He originally thought that it would be impossible to escape, but in the end, the enemy still escaped. The captain calmed down and ordered. Immediately inform Lord Sky Demon Emperor. The Sect of All Times warship has been modified, and its performance is far superior to ours. It might take some time to catch him. Yes. The subordinate began to contact the headquarters. The captain looked out into the starry sky and wondered. It's fine that the warship is fast, but why is there no signal? There must be a special way to keep an eye on Eternal, but it seemed to be useless at the moment. In the Eternal world, Jun Changshao sat down in the main hall and wiped the sweat off his forehead. It's too dangerous, too exciting. Just now, Shengguan Xinyao activated the super performance mode to break out of the encirclement. Although she managed to break out and pull away from the enemy, it consumed all the energy and needed time to recharge. Go Sheng made a prompt decision and stored the warship in the Eternal world. So, it was not that Eternal was super powerful and could fly thousands of miles away in the blink of an eye and escape the surveillance of the star map, but that it had secretly merged into another world. If it was slower, the enemy would definitely catch up. Patriarch. The Taixian elder said solemnly. The enemy must have a special way to see through Eternal. He had done a good job in shielding the aura of the warship, but he was still surrounded by so many warships. This meant that the enemy had a stronger detection technique. Then hurry up and develop a new anti-detection technique. Jun Changshao said. The Taixian elder was speechless. So, when you say it, the array hall can do it? No need for funds, no need for talents, no need for technology? Buzz. A few days later, an inconspicuous grain of sand in the universe trembled slightly, and Eternal appeared out of thin air. We can't stay here for long, Jun Changshao said. Let's leave quickly. Whoosh! Eternal spewed out light and traveled rapidly in the universe. The surface was covered with streamers visible to the naked eye, which meant that a higher-level anti-detection barrier had been developed. In the end, they were blocked in the starry sky again. Celestial Devil Emperor was even more cunning this time. Thousands of warships were distributed irregularly. It seemed chaotic, but in fact, they had blocked all the possible directions to break out of the encirclement. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao opened her eyes and said, There are no flaws. It's hard to break out. Jun Changxiao shook his head. He stood up and flew out of the Eternal. A person sat at the bow of the ship, casually lighting an electronic cigar and said, "When will revenge end?" From his point of view, he could see that there were many large warships gathering in front of him, and more experts and soldiers were flying out. Really, it was impossible to escape. Jun Patriarch. The captain of the main warship said coldly, "Being a hero in the universe where force is paramount will end up in a miserable death, and you?" After a pause he said, "Will not be an exception." "Is that so?" Jun Changxiao scratched his head, then casually spread out his hand, and there was a thunder and lightning lingering in his palm. He said, "The path I want to take, no one can stop me. If there is no path to take, I will open one even if it means I have to cut through all obstacles." Shua. He stood up and pointed the thunder and lightning at the warships in front of him. Like a priest chanting, he said, "The holy light will guide you to heaven." Buzz buzz. At the place where the thunder and lightning lingered, thousands of thunder and lightning suddenly spewed out. Zzz. Zzz. Boom. A massive electromagnetic wave blasted out from the bow of Eternal, carrying the power to rend heaven and earth. At the same time, on the battleships in different areas of the Blue Cloud School, warriors found the abnormality one after another. They stood still and looked in one direction, looking at the thunder and lightning that suddenly appeared in the dark night, and seemed to run through the sky and the sun and the moon. "Grandfather, what kind of power is that?" Within the ruins of End World, Jian Xiaohong's eyes widened. Jian Guixiu's gaze was unusually focused. After a while he replied, "I'm not sure." Clang. At this time Zhou Hong, who was standing in the bamboo forest in the distance, sheathed his sword and said calmly, "This is the power of my patriarch." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Jian Guixiu fell silent. After a while he said with interest, "This old man is becoming more and more interested in this Jun Patriarch. If there's a chance, why don't you introduce him to me?" Zhou Hong shook his head. "It's best that Shizhuan doesn't meet the Patriarch." "Why?" "I'm afraid that you'll take the blame." "Ha ha ha." Jian Guixiu laughed and said, "Although Master has retired from the pugilistic world for many years, I still have some power in the upper universe. Unless your Patriarch pokes a hole in the sky, what blame can I not take?" Chapter 1850. Captain Number 1. The commander of the fleet under the Sky Devil Emperor. He was originally on a mission in another star system, but due to the destruction of the fleet recently, he was transferred to the Blue Cloud system. As the commander of the fleet, he had high prestige and experience. He locked onto Eternal in the shortest time possible and began to make a thorough arrangement. He named the operation as catching the dog in the jar. Seriously, this guy was indeed outstanding. Although they failed to capture him once, they managed to capture Eternal again. If Jun Changxiao was described as a loach, then Captain Number 1 was an expert at catching loaches. Especially the second time from the impenetrable defense line, this was definitely an opponent with high IQ. However, this time he failed again. It was not that the plan was not meticulous enough, but he met with a hack. At this moment, in the area where Eternal was, the universe space was torn apart, forming 1,000 feet wide and endless moat. Zzz. Zzz. At the edge of the crack, there was still lightning. Even if it was weakened, it was still filled with powerful lightning. Huff. Jun Changxiao blew out a smoke ring, and the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. That wide and long spatial crack had spread out from where he was, starting from where he was. As for the battleships that originally existed in the path, they had long been turned into nothingness by the electromagnetic energy cannon. Not even a fragment was left behind. Ding. Destroyed enemy fleet 1, 2, 3. Ing. Ding. A series of notifications rang in Jun Changxiao's ears, and finally stopped at 103. Ding. Destroyed enemy battleships. 10350. Ding. Side mission completed. Reward, 10,000 reputation points. Ding. Sect reputation points, 12,000. Ding. Congratulations to host for completing the side mission. Reward, Modification Soul Stone X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Hearing the words Modification Soul Stone, Jun Changxiao's expression froze. Then he covered his face with one hand and laughed out loud. Xiao at this moment, Eternal erupted with energy and rushed towards the crack at its fastest speed. Boom! Jun Changxiao lost his balance and hit the windshield of the cockpit from the bow. Although his face was stuck to the windshield, he still maintained a smile. Kaka! The windshield, which was made of a special material, couldn't bear the pressure and started to crack. The Taishan old man said, "What a heavy face." Swish! Accelerating at full speed, Eternal instantly streaked across the starry sky and disappeared without a trace. Why didn't the celestial demon emperor's warship chase after them? Because the captain of the First Fleet was still leaning against the wall of the cockpit, his eyes were still filled with fear. Through the window of the cockpit, he could clearly see that the crack caused by the electromagnetic energy was only a step away from the main battleship. If he had moved a little closer, he would have died a horrible death. Did Gosheng relent? In fact, he originally wanted to destroy the main battleship together with it, but he did not expect the electromagnetic energy to be too terrifying. Due to inertia, the angle and aiming direction had deviated at a critical moment. Therefore, it was a complete accident that the main battleship survived. One shot. 103 battleships. If Gu Tianxing was here, his eyeballs would have popped out. Jun Changxiao was able to do this because he had used his second wish to act cool, the lightning rod. Ever since he sneaked into the upper realm and gathered the power of lightning from the formation of heavenly thunder, he had not used it other than when he successfully defeated Jin Hao. It was not that he did not use it, but it had been gathering the power of lightning all along. This was thanks to the nine-horned thundercloud beast that he caught. When he had nothing to do, he would use it as a mount and throw it into the Tianyuan prison pagoda to charge the lightning rod. That was how he was able to gather so much lightning power. I don't have this thing. It's difficult to complete the side mission. Jun Changxiao was glad. Just when he was surrounded for the second time, the side mission was triggered. It was not for him to break out of the encirclement, but to destroy 50 enemy fleets within 60 seconds. 1 minute? Was this side mission as brain-damaged as the author who added Thunder Flash? Jun Changxiao did not think that he had the ability to destroy so many battleships within 60 seconds, so he planned to give up. However, his desire to live was strong, and he suddenly remembered that he still had the lightning rod, so he hurriedly took it out from the Tianyuan prison pagoda. To be honest, as soon as he walked into the cell and saw the equipment surrounded by lightning, Gosheng was shocked. Just by looking at it with the naked eye, he could see that the lightning power gathered at this moment was much stronger than when he was in the formation of heavenly thunder. Of course, the formation of heavenly thunder was a lightning formation created by the upper realm hall. The so-called power of heavenly thunder was only of a low level, and the people it targeted were nothing more than people who sneaked in from the lower realm. The nine-horned thundercloud beast was a 9-level thundercloud beast, and the purity of its lightning attribute was very strong. After infusing the lightning rod with energy for a long time, the explosive power was naturally extraordinary. In other words, the system said, if the host can find a better lightning attribute as the energy source, the destructive power of this thing will definitely be greater than the unstoppable blade. Whether you can find it or not depends on your skill. While the two were talking, the camera slowly moved away and moved to the nine-horned thundercloud beast lying on the ground, which was so thin that it was just skin and bones. It was so scared that it immediately changed its position. In the dark universe, a grain of sand floated. No one would have thought that there was actually a huge plane hidden inside. Calm down. Jun Changxiao sat in the study, emotionally merging into the spatial ring, and then holding the warm modification soul stone in the palm of his hand. He did not care about the 10,000 reputation points rewarded by the side mission. What he cared about the most was this thing, because according to past experience, it should be able to improve the quality of the unstoppable blade. Swoosh! Jun Changxiao waved his hand and took the unstoppable blade. He touched the modification soul stone with his soul, causing it to slowly melt, and then enveloped the toy blade like mercury. As expected, It can be modified. By right, the first wish blade had been modified 4 times, and Gosheng should be very calm, but at this moment, he was exceptionally excited. There was no other reason. The celestial demonic emperor brought him too much pressure, and he was eager to have a stronger trump card to protect him. At present, the 4th form Death God Scythe could still restrain an ordinary peak truth-seeking realm. If it was upgraded to the 5th form, would it be able to fight a celestial demonic emperor head-on? The modification process needed time. Jun Changshao squatted on the ground and began to imagine the scene of the unstoppable blade meeting and killing gods, and the smile on his face gradually twisted. 2 hours later, the mercury that gathered on the unstoppable blade gradually faded. It worked. Jun Changshao stood up in joy, and suddenly found that a strange attribute emerged from the blade, and instantly merged into the sea of consciousness. Ah! Gosheng held his head and screamed, his voice like a ghost's howl. The power that eroded the mind was fleeting, and Jun Changshao quickly recovered. Then he hung his shoulders and stood in place with his head lowered. Pa! After a while he reached out and grabbed the unstoppable blade, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth saying, "The 5th form unstoppable blade can be used without the opening seal talisman. This setting is more humane, kikik." Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, Jun Changshao was enveloped by crimson flowing light, and his whole body seemed to turn into magma. Crack! 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 The sound of chains rolling sounded as if it came from hell. Whoosh! Suddenly, the magma flames that filled Jun Changshao's body suddenly disappeared, and he stood in place with magma as armor and red flames as boots. In front of him stood a sword wider than his entire body, and the blade of the sword was slanted and broken. It was a broken sword. The sword was very wide, and its color was slightly red. Although the tip of the sword was broken and looked incomplete, it did not affect the words engraved on both sides of the sword. The content was King's Sword, the soul of the tyrant. Chapter 1851. Jun Changshao held onto the 5th form of the hard-to-keep blade, and felt the endless power surging out. The corner of his mouth raised into a smile. In the past, no matter what form it was in, it would always emit an aura that would bind space. This time, there was no aura, only the aura of a king and a tyrant. What a pity, Jun Changshao said regretfully. It's a broken sword. The moon waxes and wanes, and people have their joys and sorrows. The system said. It's normal. Jun Changshao said. After upgrading to the 6th form, will the sword be complete? It's easy for readers to suspect that you're spilling spoilers. The system said. Jun Changshao said snappily. Haven't there been enough spoilers for the various missions that were released in the past? The system was speechless. Shua. Jun Changshao raised the broken sword and said heroically, "If the demonic emperor comes again, I will let them understand what terror is." In fact, with Gosheng's current cultivation, there was no pressure in fighting against a Tianji realm that was not very powerful, but he was afraid of being beaten up by a large group. Now that the 5th form of the hard-to-keep blade was completed, its power would definitely increase, and there was no need to be afraid at all. He even had the intention to fly out and take the initiative to look for the demonic emperor's subordinates. Steady. He couldn't go wild. Jun Changshao forcefully suppressed his complacent state of mind. Although the upgraded hard-to-keep blade could shine brightly against the enemy, it was a bit unrealistic to rely on this thing alone to fight against the demonic emperor. Moreover, previously he had used the lightning rod to destroy so many warships. As long as the other party had a brain, they would not dare to chase after him for the time being. Jun Changshao's mind stirred. Buzz. Buzz. The surface of the tyrant's sword was bound by layers of chains, and then it gradually returned to its pocket-sized form from its wide form. Ka. After a while, the hard-to-keep blade was unsealed and once again turned into a broken sword. The system said. Is it fun? You've never played it before, right? It's fun. It's not over yet. Jun Changshao's face revealed a smile like that of a landlord's silly son. How strong the 5th form would be needed to be proven in actual combat. The happiest thing was that the epic cerebral palsy setting that could be unlocked through the opening seal talisman was finally removed in the new version. The reason why Gosheng didn't use Unstoppable Blade so often was that it required an item to be unsealed. Furthermore, the quest rewards were very few, so Gosheng couldn't bear to use it. Now that there were no more restrictions, it would definitely be exhilarating. Buzz. Ka. The broken sword was retrieved and unsealed again. Jun Changshao was like a child who had never played with a toy since he was young. He stood in the same place and unsealed it several times. However, the upgraded Unstoppable Blade had changed a lot. Even if Gosheng kept tormenting it, it was still full of energy and showed no signs of weakness. Could it be that from today onwards, the setting where one had to pay a painful price to obtain power that did not match their realm was going to be changed? Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. Entering the cell, Jun Changshao placed the lightning rod in the center and instructed, "Continue charging." The nine-horned thundercloud dragon lying on the ground cried. When needed, it was used as a mount. When not needed, it was thrown into the cell as a power bank. This was a true tool. The three of you. Jun Changshao came to another floor of the prison and sat on a chair with his hands on his legs. He smiled and said, "Are you used to living here?" The three Night King Alliance experts were silent. "Actually, I also have a grudge with Sky Demon King. Since we have a common enemy, why not become friends?" Jun Changshao said. After hearing about Yi Xingqian, he was very interested in this Night King Alliance. If they could bury the hatchet, it would be for the best. "Brat," Old Crane angrily said. "We are all smart people, so stop pretending." They had always thought that Jun Changshao was Sky Demon King's dog, so no matter how he explained, they would not believe him. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head. If Night King Alliance were all smart people like you, how could they beat the ambitious Sky Demon King? "Brat," Old Crane angrily said. "Kill us if you want, but don't humiliate our Night King Alliance." Needless to say, although the three brothers looked dumb, they valued their own power. Even if they were taught a lesson by the soul-suppressing whip, they still dared to go against Jun Changshao. "Time will prove that I am innocent." Jun Changshao was too lazy to care about the three and turned to leave. "Haha." The old man who had been silent all this time sneered. "Brat, you really think the heavens and earth don't know you captured us?" "What do you mean?" "To tell you the truth, we Night King Alliance have a special way of communicating. As long as we are in the same galaxy, we can easily find you no matter where you hide." Old Crane coldly said. "So either you kill us or wait for a disaster to befall you." Jun Changshao muttered in his mind. "How stupid, they can even say this." "They are not stupid," the system said. "Daring to say this, they are probably asking for death." Jun Changshao was silent. Gradually he understood. The old man had said that the Night King Alliance had a special way of contacting him to anger him. He wanted to die, and he didn't want him to use them as hostages to force the Night King Alliance to submit. Man enough. Jun Changshao gave him a thumbs up. "Patriarch." At this time, a voice came to his ears. "We are blocked again." Whoosh! Jun Changshao returned to Eternal and subconsciously released his spiritual sense. He found that there was no Celestial Demon King's worship in this area, only a barefoot middle-aged man with disheveled hair standing in the path of the worship. "Just one person?" Gosheng frowned. Whoosh! Suddenly, the barefoot man landed in front of the windshield and tilted his head to look inside, muttering to himself. "This worship is very similar to Celestial Demon King's. Why aren't his subordinates inside?" So fast. Jun Changshao was shocked. He was still far away a moment ago, but he suddenly approached the worship. He almost couldn't keep up. "You are?" Jun Changshao asked solemnly. "Pa." The barefoot man stuck a piece of paper on the windshield with the word Night on it and introduced himself. "Night King Alliance's protector, Feng Wanli." Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. The three brothers in the prison just said that Night King Alliance had a special way of communicating. He didn't expect a comrade to come to him. Judging from the speed of his flash, he should be quite strong. "What do you want?" "Saving people." Jun Changshao didn't want to admit it, but he could tell that the other party knew he had imprisoned his Night King Alliance comrades. He shook his head and said, "Please change the word save to ransom." Ransom? Feng Wanli laughed. "From what you said, my Nanking Alliance members were kidnapped by you." "Kidnapping is going too far," Jun Changshao said. "Your 3 comrades can't distinguish right from wrong and slandered this seat as Celestial Demon King's lackey. Naturally, you have to pay the price." "Oh." Feng Wanli scratched his head and said, "If this is true, this Feng apologizes on their behalf and asks you to release them quickly." "I can release them, but you have to pay." He temporarily defined Nanking Alliance as a righteous faction that went against Celestial Demon King. But no matter what, they had to pay. After all, they had slandered him as a lackey, so they had to pay for the damage to their reputation. "Fine." Feng Wanli raised his hand and a vortex appeared, smashing into the windshield. With a pung, it shattered on the spot. "Damn it." Jun Changshao stood up and said angrily, "You dare to destroy the seat's warship? Didn't you want money?" Feng Wanli waved at him and grinned. "Come out, this Feng will give it to you." Chapter 1852. The Eternal was docked in space, and the members of the array hall were changing the windshield in front of the cockpit. Shatter the mirror reinforced by the array with a single palm strike. The Taishian elder said seriously, "That person is very strong." Jun Changshao had used his face to hit the windshield, and although it was unintentional, it still caused a small crack. But the other party shattered it with one palm. In comparison, one could roughly estimate the other party's strength. Feelings. Go Sheng's face had become the standard to measure one's strength. "The patriarch is very angry," Ryu Sinan said. "If that guy doesn't have the ability, I'm afraid he'll be in trouble." "That's right." Everyone nodded in agreement. From their point of view, Jun Changshao was standing in the vast space outside, full of anger. The Eternal was the first warship they had obtained. Although it was not as good as the one they obtained from the Sky Devil Emperor in some aspects, they still had feelings for it. Today, its windshield was destroyed. This was absolutely unforgivable. Unless they had to pay. "Kid." Feng Wanli took out a spatial ring and smiled. "There are many spirit stones inside. If you want it, it depends on whether you have the ability to snatch it." Obviously, he did not intend to use money to ransom him. "Okay." Jun Changshao opened his hand and shook his head. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew. "Not good." Boom! The whirlwind suddenly exploded, and Jun Changshao, who was warming up, was sent flying with a tilted face, crashing into a faraway meteorite. However, Feng Wanli stood where Go Sheng was and lightly retracted his foot. "You don't seem to have the ability." Ryu Sinan and the others were silent. Kicking the patriarch away, this person's strength was not something the 3 imprisoned Nanking Alliance members could compare to. Peak. He Wudi leaned against the cabin door and thought. Others might not know, but he who came from a higher level knew that the Heaven's secret realm was actually divided into normal and peak. Normal. Jun Changxiao's type. The few captains who were killed were also at this level. Peak. It was something like 10,000 miles pointing wind. Disregarding everything else, just from the speed at which he sent Jun Changxiao flying with a kick, there was a clear difference between the two of them. If it was the captain sent by the Celestial Devil Emperor, with the strength of the Night King Alliance Protector, he would not have been killed. On the contrary, he would have crushed Go Sheng. Ooh. Jun Changxiao steadied himself and rubbed the shoulder that was kicked. Feng Wanli was not surprised that this fellow could still act as if nothing had happened after being kicked by him. He said, "I can now confirm that you are not the demonic Emperor Eagle Hound." "What do you mean?" Jun Changxiao asked. "Because." Feng Wanli shrugged and said, "Too weak." Jun Changxiao did not say anything. Normally, he should be angry after being mocked in such a blatant manner. However, he was unusually calm at this moment. He could even tell from the other party's words that the Celestial Devil Emperor should have many experts under his command. That's right. An ambitious person who dared to conquer the upper universe. If his subordinates were all captains, how could he do whatever he wanted? The system said, perhaps in their eyes, the Ashen Cloud system is just a small place, and they can just send some people over to settle it. If they are serious, the subordinates they send can destroy everything. For example, Jun Changshao looked at Feng Wanli and said, "Such a person. Although I don't want to attack the host, but..." The system paused and said, "There may be more than one." Jun Changshao was silent. If the Celestial Devil Emperor really had so many experts under his command, he would have to be more careful when he went out in the future. "Let them go," Feng Wanli said. "The previous grudges are written off." "I think so too," Jun Changshao said. "But pay first. Who cares if you are a good or a bad person? You have to pay if you offend me." Jun Changshao had always been firm and would not choose to compromise because of the opponent's strength, because he had a stronger trump card. "Kid," Feng Wanli said, "you are really stubborn. Forget it, forget it." He shook his head and said, "Since you care so much about worldly possessions, I can only let you understand that the most important thing in this world is not money, but whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh." As he spoke, his body was surrounded by wild winds, which soon turned into a tornado. He said, "Life. Ka ka ka." The wind mercilessly filled the surroundings, and the space was gradually cut apart. In my opinion, Jun Changshao took out the unbearable blade and played with it on his fingertips. He said, "Life is important, but money is more important." "Ha!" Feng Wanli, who was in the whirlwind, laughed and said, "I have wandered the universe for so many years, but this is the first time I have seen someone who wants money more than life." Whoosh! That vertical tornado moved toward Jun Changshao with the momentum of rolling the universe. The strength of the wind could be described as heaven and earth collapsing. "Retreat," the Taishan elder said. "Quickly retreat." Whoosh! Whoosh! The members of the array formation hall, who had just replaced the new glass, returned to the battleship. Shangguan Xinyao immediately turned around and flew to another star region at the fastest speed. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka. Not long after they left, the area they were at previously distorted and collapsed under the wind. With the tornado as the center, the entire space within 1,000 miles was like a piece of paper that was suddenly crushed into a ball. The scene was terrifying. Jun Changshao looked calm on the surface, but he was shocked on the inside. They were both at the Heaven's secret realm, but this person's aura was too terrifying. "Kid," Feng Wanli, who seemed to have merged with the tornado, said indifferently, "You have one more chance to choose between money or life." Whoosh whoosh. The wind whistled and messed up Jun Changshao's long hair, revealing a knife-like face. The corner of his mouth was slightly raised, revealing an unruly smile. "Pa." As he spoke, his finger flicked on the unbearable blade. Clang! The sound of the blade being unsheathed was heard, and it sounded especially crisp in the wind. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, a magma-like and flame-like attribute erupted in the fluctuating universe and gradually condensed into a materialized broken sword. Feng Wanli frowned. "Pa." A hand reached out from the magma-like flame and grabbed the broken sword's hilt. Jun Changshao slowly walked out from it. His hair, shoulders, and body were dragging flames. Patriarch Ryu Sinan and the others who had hidden in the safe area were stunned. At this moment, not only did they see Jun Changshao standing in the universe with a broken sword in his hand, but they also saw the word king carved on the left side of his face and the word tyrant carved on the right side of his face. Combined together, it was Tyrant King. Whoosh whoosh. After releasing the fifth form of unbearable blade, Jun Changshao's body emitted a monstrous aura. The flame-like attribute seemed to be dancing wildly in all directions. Gradually, the wind slowed down and even stopped. How is this possible? Feng Wanli was shocked. This guy's aura can actually suppress my 9 heavens mysterious wind. Sorry. Jun Changshao gently raised the Tyrant King's sword, and the smile on the corner of his mouth became wider. Only children make choices. As for me, I want both money and life. Buzz. After he finished speaking, a red ripple visible to the naked eye erupted with him as the center. Feng Wanli was shocked. Not good. The tornado stopped abruptly. The space that was originally like a ball also returned to normal. Feng Wanli stood there in a daze. His eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. At this moment, Jun Changshao stopped in front of him. That seemingly heavy and huge broken sword was already on the other party's neck. The scene exploded. What happened? It was nothing much. It was just that Jun Changshao suddenly rushed over, and the surrounding tornado collapsed into nothingness, resulting in the current scene. As for the whole process, not to mention Ryu Sinan and the others, even Feng Wanli, who was being held hostage, didn't notice it. Thus, he wouldn't still be in a state of shock and confusion. Shua. Jun Changshao waved his hand and snatched the space ring, saying, "Thank you." Needless to say, there were quite a lot of spirit stones inside. It was just enough to make up for a part of the losses that Eternal had consumed when it first broke out. Chapter 1853. Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. The one called Old Crane chewed on a steamed bun and said, "Night King will definitely come and save us." "That's right." The other one agreed and used his chopsticks to pick up the cold noodles. As prisoners, they weren't bullied, but the food that was delivered every day was a bit unpresentable. From this, one could see that Jun Changshao didn't want to recruit them, or else he would have ordered the canteen to prepare delicious food to persuade them to surrender. "Sai," the one called Oldly said helplessly, "we failed Night King's order." This sentence made the two companions who were eating feel ashamed. They were ordered to come to Blue Cloud to save a suppressed plane, but they didn't even complete the mission, and became prisoners. In the end, they had to ask Night King to come and save them. "After we go back," Oldly said, "we have to apologize." From his tone, it wasn't hard to see that he really thought they could be saved. Creak. At this time, the cell door was opened. Swoosh. Swoosh. Old Crane and his companions hurriedly threw away the steamed bun and noodles in their hands, then proudly stood up straight. That unyielding aura once again spread between their brows. "Go in." Ka, ka, ka. The sound of chains hitting the ground was heard. Another prisoner? The three thought in their minds, then slowly opened their eyes wide. Because the prisoner that came in had messy hair and was unkempt, obviously it was Oldly was shocked. "Protector Feng." Feng Wanli shook his head, sat on the wooden plank and lowered his head. "Don't ask anything, let me be alone." As one of the protectors of Night King, he was ordered to save 3 members. He thought it would be easy, but in the end, he was also a prisoner. The most tragic thing was that his 7 to 8 space rings were all taken away. Just thinking about his family's property being gone made his heart ache. So painful. So painful. SKTA. In the Sect of All Time's main hall, Jun Changshao checked the space rings one by one and said in shock, "This Night King protector is very rich. We've already offended Sky Demon Emperor. If we offend Night King, I'm afraid." Ryu Sinan said, "AI." Jun Changshao said, "I also want to maintain a friendly relationship with this organization, but they are completely uncooperative." Ryu Sinan was silent. "You're always thinking about extorting money. Who's willing to cooperate?" However, Jun Changshao clasped his fingers together and said, "This Night King alliance has given me some inspiration. Rather than fighting the demonic emperor alone, why not find more helpers? What does the patriarch mean? For example, we could form an alliance and gather the experts of the various planes to fight against the celestial demonic emperor together." Jun Changshao did not think that with his current strength, he would be able to contend against the celestial demon emperor. If he relied solely on developing, it would take time. It would be better for him to use the Night King Alliance's method of uniting with other realms to form a force that could contend against the celestial demon emperor. If that's the case, the system asked, why not join the Night King Alliance? How can I be at ease with such an idiotic subordinate? Jun Changshao said, besides, dealing with the demonic emperor requires a leader with brains. I'm confident that I can take on that responsibility. The system couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of phlegm. You just want to be the boss and not lower yourself to others. That's right. Jun Changshao was honest, looked at you outside the camera, and asked, is there anything wrong with that? Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. Xiao Ziji walked in first and placed a chair at the door. Jun Changshao sat down elegantly, looked at Feng Wanli who had his head lowered the entire time and smiled. Protector Feng, are you used to living here? Feng Wanli raised his head and said with a serious expression, Who exactly are you? This was his first time in the Blue Cloud Sect, and he had more or less heard of the famous experts, but he had never heard of such a young expert who could even subdue him with a single sword strike. I will not change my name, nor my surname, Jun Changxiao said. Patriarch of the Sect of all times, Jun Changxiao. Sect of all times? Jun Changxiao? Feng Wanli murmured. Never heard of him. Protector. Old Crane pointed at Jun Changxiao and said angrily, This guy is the Sky Demon Emperor's dog, he is just making up an identity to deceive us. Damn. Jun Changxiao stood up and roared. Who are you calling a dog? You. I dare you to say it again. Dog. Dog. Old Crane's finger reached out from the cage, pointed at Jun Changxiao's nose and emphasized again. The latter was so angry that he opened his mouth and bit it. If Xiao Ziji didn't pull him back, he would have bitten him. Patriarch, calm down, Patriarch, calm down. Huff. Jun Changxiao sat on the chair angrily, tried to calm down, and returned to the topic. Of course, I have another identity. What identity? Jun Alliance leader. Jun Alliance? Feng Wanli had never heard of it. Of course. Jun Changxiao clasped his fingers together and said solemnly, The establishment of this organization can be traced back to ancient times. Whenever a great calamity is about to befall the upper universe, it will reappear in the world and save the world from disaster. Feng Wanli was confused. This little cow sure knows how to brag, even talking about the ancient times. Besides, your name is Jun Changxiao, and this organization is called the Jun Alliance. It's obvious that you came up with it. Do you really think we are idiots who believe everything you say? I know. Jun Changxiao said. You have doubts. It doesn't matter. I will use my actions to prove that when the Sky Demon Emperor is doing evil, when the universe is at its darkest, only the Jun Alliance has the ability to save the world. Feng Wanli laughed. Leaving aside whether the Jun Alliance was real or not, this sentence alone was enough to break his tongue. Kid. Feng Wanli said calmly. Although I don't want to discourage you, there is something I must tell you. In the upper universe, the only one who has the ability to save the world is the leader of the Night King Alliance. Jun Changxiao mumbled in his heart. Is he brainwashed? If so, he said expectantly, I would like to meet this Night King. Please tell me the address. I have prepared a great gift for the visit. Sorry. Feng Wanli said. No comment. Then stay here. Jun Changxiao stood up and left. Guard. After he left, the old crane said, You don't really believe that this guy is the patriarch of the Sect of all times, the leader of the Jun Alliance, right? No. Feng Wanli shook his head. In my opinion, this guy is the Sky Demon Emperor's dog. No. Feng Wanli said. This guy is definitely not the Sky Demon Emperor's subordinate. He was not sure if it was the patriarch or the leader, but he was sure that it had nothing to do with the Sky Demon Emperor. If it did, he and his companions would not have been imprisoned. It's him. Who is he? Feng Wanli sat in the cell thinking. Until he combined the special sword and the terrifying sword aura, he realized. Could it be related to the ruins of En Sword Saint? Ruins of En Sword Saint? Old Li was shocked. Isn't he living in seclusion? Not necessarily. Feng Wanli said. The Night King once said that the ruins of En Sword Saint was cynical when he was young. Now that the Sky Demon Emperor is wreaking havoc in the upper universe, there is no way he can sit still. He might have already made a move in the dark, and that young man might be his subordinate. Achoo. In the ruins of End World, the ruins of En Sword Saint who was supervising Zhou Hong's sword practice suddenly sneezed. He was confused. Why do I have a bad feeling? Chapter 1854. Feng Wanli misunderstood. Jun Changxiao had nothing to do with the ruins of En Sword Saint. Actually, it was not his fault that his imagination was too exaggerated. The main thing was that when the sword Dao was mentioned in the Ashen Cloud system, the first thing that came to mind was that secluded senior. Moreover, the sword aura that erupted from the fifth form was too terrifying. If it was slightly older and more immortal-like, it would be easy for people to suspect that it was the ruins of N Sword Saint himself. Getting rid of a top divine secret like Feng Wanli meant that the upgraded Hardblade had already caught up with the current version. Awesome! Back in the study, Go Sheng was grinning from ear to ear. During this period of time, he had been sullen because he could not fight against the Sky Devil Emperor. He could only wander around the universe with his tail between his legs. The hard-to-retract blade was strong again, and it could be unbridled again. The laughter of a villain intoxicated with success came from the study. Plop. Suddenly, the sound of falling replaced the strange laughter. The camera turned and saw the complacent Jun Changshao lying on the ground in the study. The energy in his dantian was sealed, and he could not summon any strength. Judging from the symptoms, that's right, Go Sheng was weak again. Isn't there no side effects? Jun Changshao roared in his heart. After Hardblade was upgraded, he had played with it a few times, but nothing happened. Now that he suddenly felt weak, he definitely could not accept it. The system said, "If I'm not wrong, the host can unseal it at will and play with it at will. As long as it is used in battle, the side effects will be triggered." Jun Changshao was speechless. It's already very good. The system comforted him. At least you cut off the unsealing process. Not bad. Jun Changshao said, when I had the seal in the past, did I lack the talisman to open the seal? What's the difference between cutting it off and not cutting it off now? The system was speechless. Indeed, in some critical life and death situations, Go Sheng really did not lack the talisman to open the seal. He would open the seal whenever he wanted to, so there was no point in unsealing it. The unsealing mechanism was cancelled, but the side effects were still there. This made Jun Changshao, who was beside himself with joy, instantly enter a state of seclusion. Originally, he thought that if the Sky Devil Emperor's subordinates caught up again, he would directly use the fifth form to wipe them all out. But now, he had to think about it again. AI. Lying in the space-time secret realm, Jun Changshao looked at the distorted space and thought, in the end, I'm still too weak. Without external help, I can't defeat the Celestial Devil Emperor. The more this was the case, the more determined he was to establish an alliance to fight against the Celestial Devil Emperor. From now on, Jun Changshao said with a stern look, the Jun Alliance has been established. Boom. In the outside world, in the dark and endless universe, when Go Sheng was about to put his casual words into action, there was a sudden clap of thunder. No matter how far away the plane was, it could be faintly heard. What was that sound? Thunder? It seems to have come from the depths of the universe. Many martial artists from different factions were discussing this, and their eyes were filled with awe. In an inconspicuous area of the gray cloud system, a man in black who was flying at high speed suddenly stopped when he heard the thunder. His eyes were filled with excitement as he said, "The person who will change the situation of the upper universe has finally appeared." Who is it? Who is it? In the ruins of End Realm, the ruins of N Sword Saint who was drinking tea in the bamboo forest also heard the thunder. He gently put down the teacup, and the words of an old friend rang in his ears. The day when the heavenly thunder shakes the universe, a new era will begin. Is the prophet's prophecy about to come true? Whoosh. At this moment, a black figure appeared out of thin air and said respectfully, "Master, I've just received news that the patriarch of the Sect of all times has destroyed several fleets of the Celestial Devil Emperor." Oh, Jian Guishi was a little surprised. The Celestial Devil Emperor was extremely powerful and powerful. The sect that his disciple belonged to had dared to attack him. They were quite bold. Pass down the order. Jian Guishi stood up, and his indifferent aura was replaced by an unstoppable sword aura. He said, "All members of the Sword Alliance, gather and officially declare war on the Celestial Devil Emperor." The black-robed man was a little worried. "Isn't this a little too hasty?" Jian Guishi said, "I believe that many old guys have already taken action. After all, they're all waiting for the prophet's prophecy to come true. They're all waiting for the person who will change the situation of the universe to appear. Now that the Heavenly Thunder Avatar has appeared, it means that the opportunity has arrived." Opportunity? The black-robed man was puzzled. You mean? I can't say. Jian Guishu pretended to be mysterious. The sound of thunder reverberated throughout the universe, alarming many important figures. For a time, undercurrents surged in many planes. Whoosh! Beside a pond in a certain realm, a white-haired man put away his fishing rod and left with his fish basket. His silhouette gradually turned from plain to sharp. It was as if he had transformed from an old man with one foot in the grave to a young man full of vigor. Boom! A barren mountain in a certain realm slowly tilted. The middle-aged man who looked like he was about to lift the entire mountain took out a 9-ring saber from the bottom and smiled. Old friend, this opportunity has appeared. We can't miss it. Similar situations played out in many other planes. After hearing the heavenly thunder, ordinary people seem to have been reborn in both their aura and mentality. In a grand hall, Celestial Devil Emperor sat at the head of the table. He also heard the thunder, and even remembered what Prophet Wei Buzi had said. Only when the heavenly thunder filled the universe, it meant that the person who would change the situation had appeared. My Emperor, the counselor reported with a solemn expression. The branches have sent in information that many hidden experts and forces have appeared one after another. It seems that they want to be enemies with us, Celestial Devil Emperor said disdainfully. Just a bunch of trash who won't amount to anything. He wasn't afraid of having too many enemies, even if he had to become enemies with the world. He even welcomed them to oppose him because this would give him more reasons to speed up his conquest of the upper universe. Pass down the order. Celestial Devil Emperor's eyes flashed with intense killing intent. Anyone who resists this emperor, along with their plane, will have to bear the risk of being destroyed. Yes. The counselor retreated. Celestial Devil Emperor leaned back in his chair and said indifferently, Prophet Wei Buzi, although you didn't miss anything in your calculations, don't forget that with this emperor's cultivation base, I can completely defy the heavens and change fate. In this upper universe, only this emperor is qualified to change the situation. No one else is worthy. The upper universe became abnormally strange because of the heavenly thunder. Jun Changshao was like a pile of mud lying in the space-time pocket to recuperate. He began to plan how to develop the Jun Alliance. Alliance. Therefore, the first thing to do was to recruit allies. After the side effects disappear, I'll have to wander around the major planes. Jun Changshao muttered. The reason he decided to develop the alliance on a whim was because of the inspiration given by the Night King Alliance. He also believed that going against Celestial Devil Emperor wasn't something he could do alone. He needed to unite everyone. Why should they follow you? The system poured cold water on him again at an inappropriate time. Because, Jun Changshao paused for a moment and pointed at himself. I understand. Without waiting for him to speak, the system said first, because the host is thick-skinned. Chapter 1855. Jun Changshao didn't know how long Unstoppable Saber would be weakened. He could only take back the battleship for the time being and hide in the eternal world to recuperate. He had no idea what was happening in the outside world. Nothing had happened. It was nothing more than some top experts against the Celestial Demon Emperor, and some ancient forces standing up to get rid of the evil for the people. The situation in the upper universe used to be that everyone only cared about their own business, and didn't care about others. But now, they were all denouncing the villain with righteous indignation. They were all talk and no action. Some bad-tempered top experts even fought with the Celestial Demon Emperor's subordinates, although they were defeated in the end. Anyway, the wave of anti-heaven demon emperors from various forces and planes became more and more intense. Many people were confused. In the past, the Celestial Demon Emperor was busy destroying this and that, and the experts didn't care. Why did they all come out recently? Had they reached a consensus? Had they reached a cooperation? Thank God. Finally, someone is willing to help us. Although the creatures of various forces didn't know the specific situation, since there were so many experts, the anti-heaven demon emperor was naturally grateful and regarded him as a hero. With a large number of top experts and ancient forces joining in one after another, The celestial demon emperor was obviously hindered. His original plan to destroy more planes had to be adjusted temporarily. Leader. In the main hall of the League of Stars and Seas, Vice Leader Peng said excitedly, "We are safe." He had received news of many experts coming out of seclusion. He didn't think the celestial demon emperor had time to invade the celestial realm. Alas. Gu Tianxing sighed and said, "This is only temporary. If they can't compete with the celestial demon emperor, the celestial realm can't escape the fate of destruction." Vice Leader Peng was silent. Besides, Gu Tianxing added, those experts who came out may not be for the sake of the world. Then why? Vice Leader Peng asked. I don't know. Gu Tianxing was an expert in the upper universe, but he hadn't reached the level of Jian Guixiu, so he couldn't understand some things. As the wave of anti-heaven demon emperors from various forces and planes became more and more intense, fierce fighting was inevitable. This was just a few days ago. The Sky Devil Emperor's Fourth Fleet encountered a group of powerhouses. The two sides fought fiercely in the universe for almost a few days. Blood and wreckage floated in the broken space. This situation would only become more and more serious, because the more they resisted, the more they would have to endure cruel repression. According to the latest news obtained by Vice Alliance leader Peng, a certain plane of the Blue Cloud system had been directly erased by the Sky Devil Emperor, and all the living beings inside had their souls scattered. Alliance Master, Great Elder said pessimistically, our crossing heaven world will probably follow in their footsteps. Even so, Gu Tianxing's eyes were cold as he said, we must resist to the end. The more brutal the celestial demonic emperor was, the more it aroused the resistance of the various dimensions. Fierce battles, big and small, filled the entire upper universe, and the atmosphere became more and more oppressive. However, at the darkest moment, a ray of light rose. Swish, swish. In a certain plane that was being invaded, thousands of sword lights streaked across the sky and reaped the lives of the celestial devil emperor's subordinates in an overbearing manner. The newcomers were a group of white-clothed martial artists, standing on flying swords. They were all dressed in the same uniform with the words Sword Union engraved on their chests. A Sword Alliance disciple. On the orders of the Sword Saint of the Ruins, we have come to punish evil. A loud voice pierced through heaven and earth, echoing in the ears of the people. It felt as if a god had suddenly descended to save the world when the world was about to be destroyed. At the moment of danger, there were thousands of troops and horses to save them. Not to mention that they were the forces established by one of the top legend rankers of the Blue Cloud system. Patriarch. Vice Alliance leader Peng said excitedly, Senior Guixiu has come out of seclusion. Our crossing heaven world is saved. I hope so. Gu Tianxing was still a little worried. Could Senior Sword Saint fight against the Celestial Devil Emperor? Not long after, a piece of news brought him, and even the entire Blue Cloud system, a painful blow. At the intersection of the two universes, Jian Guixiu had lost to King Jialua, one of the 8 dragons under the Celestial Devil Emperor. The people of the world who had just seen hope once again felt despair. However, news of despair came again and again. Many experts and forces who resisted the Celestial Devil Emperor were either killed or heavily injured. The people of the world could only pray every day, hoping to see a true savior in their lifetime. Soon. One day, Gu Tianxing sat on a mountain peak and seemed to have sensed something. He slowly opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. The hero who will save the world is about to appear. After Jian Guixiu lost to the Celestial Devil Emperor's right-hand man, he was also filled with despair. He was even prepared to die with the crossing heaven world. However, for some reason, his despair was suddenly replaced by hope. Sect of all times, space-time secret realm. A long-awaited figure walked out from inside. Jun Changshao recovered, and stood with his hands behind his back. His face that had not been affected by the passage of time was even fairer. He had to be honest. Although Go Sheng was a dog, his appearance was not bad. Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said, you finally came out. Did something happen while I was in seclusion? Jun Changshao asked. Ryu Sinan was speechless. There are only 3 months left until the Universe Sacred War Finals. Patriarch, have you forgotten? Pa. Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said, I really forgot. During this time, he had been fighting with the Celestial Devil Emperor, and forgot about the Universe Sacred War. Let's go, Jun Changshao said. Back to the crossing heaven world. Xiao. The eternal ship flew through the universe. At first, Jun Changshao was worried that they would be blocked by the Celestial Devil Emperor. But in the end, they were unimpeded. Seems like, Go Sheng said proudly. The power of the lightning rod made them pee their pants. Patriarch, look. At this time, Shangguan Xinyao enlarged the space map, and saw that the universe area in front of them had collapsed. There were corpses and wreckage everywhere. It was as if a fierce battle had just happened. Jun Changshao frowned. He could tell from the corpses and wreckage that a small number of them were the subordinates of the Celestial Devil Emperor. Could it be? Jun Changshao said. When I was in seclusion, someone fought with the Celestial Devil Emperor. The space collapse was so serious, and there were so many corpses. Goshen could imagine that it must be a fierce battle comparable to the battle between two armies. And this. It did not conform to his understanding of the upper universe forces, that only cared about their own business. On the way to the crossing heaven world, the eternal ship encountered several collapsed areas after a battle. This meant that there was more than one battle. Jun Changxiao's expression became more and more serious. At this moment, he began to wonder if the Celestial Devil Emperor was serious and wanted to conquer the entire blue cloud system with absolute power? Xinyao. Jun Changxiao said, speed up. Go Sheng was most worried that the crossing heaven world had been invaded by the Celestial Devil Emperor, so he had to rush over as soon as possible. Fortunately, when the eternal ship passed through layers of space in super mode, the crossing heaven world still existed in the universe. The shining light meant that it was not invaded. Phew. Jun Changxiao and Gu Xiaoxi sighed in relief. At this moment, Gosheng saw many battleships floating in the starry sky outside the crossing heaven world. From their appearance, they did not look like the Celestial Devil Emperor's battleships. Alliance Chief Gu. Outside the crossing heaven world, a black-haired elder asked solemnly, have you considered joining the demon-killing alliance to fight against the Celestial Devil Emperor? Gu Tianxing looked troubled. Sorry. At this moment, a voice came from afar. Senior Gu is from the Jun Alliance. The demon-killing alliance can go and rest. Phew. The eternal ship flew over and hovered above them. Gu Tianxing's expression changed again and again. In the end, he could not help but shout, Brat, why are you back? Chapter 1856. When the thunder roared, the entire universe was thrown into chaos. All sorts of formidable martial artists and factions appeared. In the past, only the Night King Alliance dared to go against the Heaven Demonic Emperor. Now they could be seen everywhere. For example, the Demon Killing Alliance, which had come to recruit Gu Tianxing. Let's put it this way. Any force that claimed to be in the name of eliminating evil and punishing evil was recruiting experts to strengthen their own forces. They were not stupid. They knew that the Heaven Demonic Emperor was very powerful. If they wanted to go against him, they had to gather more battle strength. Jun Changxiao knew this very well. Thus, after he decided to form the Jun Alliance, his first thought was to get Uncle Gu to join him. The Demon Killing Alliance wanted to snatch him? No way. However, when Jun Changxiao flew over an eternal, Gu Tianxing was on the verge of breaking down. The upper universe was in chaos now. Why did he come back instead of hiding himself? The worst thing was, he had to speak so harshly. He would definitely offend someone. As expected, the black-haired elder's expression darkened. Didn't you hear me clearly? Jun Changxiao flew out of the battleship and stood in the universe with his hands behind his back. He said calmly, go and rest somewhere cool. Brat, the black-haired elder said in a low voice, you're too arrogant. This was already quite restrained. His companions beside him unleashed their cultivation. It was obvious that they were planning to attack. Elder Lin. Gu Tianxing hurriedly tried to smooth things over. This is the patriarch of the sect of all times, Jun Changxiao. He is quite straightforward. Please don't take offense. Oh, Elder Lin was surprised. He's the patriarch of the sect of all times? Yes. Jun Changxiao's expression and tone made even Gu Tianxing want to kick him. So it's Jun Patriarch. Elder Lin retracted the anger on his face and cupped his hands. It's an honor to meet you. The Eternal Sect's reputation began to spread after the galactic competition, but its influence was only average. What was really remembered by the world was that they dared to challenge the celestial demonic emperor, destroyed many of his fleets, and saved many planes. The demon-killing alliance that Elder Lin mentioned was in the Ashen Cloud system. Naturally, he had heard of this. Elder Lin, Jun Changxiao said, the Jun Alliance needs formidable martial artists like you. Are you interested in joining us? Elder Lin's mouth. He came to the Heaven Crossing realm this time to recruit people, but he didn't expect that he would be recruited by someone else. Sorry, Elder Lin said. I already have an organization. Since that's the case, Jun Changxiao gestured for the guest to leave. Please go back. Elder Lin's anger. I respect you for daring to challenge the Heaven Demonic Emperor. However, that's not something you can use to be arrogant. Seeing that the situation had become awkward again, Gu Tianxing hurriedly said, Elder Lin, I'm very touched that your alliance is so considerate of the world. If you need my help in the future, the League of Stars and Seas will definitely help you. He's indeed experienced. Not only was he asking Elder Lin to leave, but he was also rejecting Elder Lin's invitation. All right. Elder Lin had no choice but to leave. However, before he left, he stopped and said, Alliance Master Gu Jun Patriarch, the Heaven Demonic Emperor is powerful and ruthless. We can only fight him if we unite. Jun Changxiao said, that's why I'm asking the Demon-Killing Alliance to join the Jun Alliance. We can work together to protect the world. Elder Lin waved his sleeves and left. After interacting with him for a short while, his evaluation of Jun Changxiao was that he was arrogant and conceited. Such a person was completely incapable of fighting against the Heaven Demonic Emperor. What a coincidence. Gou Sheng also had an evaluation of Elder Lin. Elder Lin's words and actions showed no sincerity in recruiting allies. Instead, he seemed to be recruiting subordinates. It was impossible for him and the Demon-Killing Alliance to fight against the Heaven Demonic Emperor. Aya. Yeah. Suddenly, Gu Tianxing grabbed Jun Changxiao's ear and dragged him into the Crossing Heaven realm. As he walked, he roared, Are you tired of living? How dare you come out so brazenly? He had heard about the conflict between the Sect of all times and the Heaven Demonic Emperor. Every day, he was on tenterhooks, afraid that the guy would be caught, and that something would happen to his son. Uncle. Ouch. Be gentle. In the main hall, Gu Tianxing took a sip of tea and said, That's the situation. Jun Changxiao was silent. He had not expected the upper universe to be in such a mess while he was recovering from his weakened state in the mystic realm. There were even many forces that dared to fight against the Heaven Demonic Emperor. Uncle. Jun Changxiao was puzzled. Since they have the courage to fight against the Heaven Demonic Emperor, why didn't they take action earlier? I don't know. Gu Tianxing shook his head. There must be something fishy. In the beginning, no one dared to fight against the Heaven Demonic Emperor. Now, everyone was attacking. It was not normal to think about it. Kid. Gu Tianxing asked. What does the Jun Alliance mean? Uncle, the Jun Alliance was established by me. Its purpose is to fight against the Heaven Demonic Emperor and save the world, Jun Changxiao said. Gu Tianxing was speechless. Don't add to the trouble. I'm serious. Jun Changxiao's expression turned serious. Gu Tianxing looked at him and asked, Are you confident that you can fight against the Heaven Demonic Emperor? I'm not, Jun Changxiao said frankly. However, after a pause he stood up and said, One person's strength is not enough. I can gather the strength of a group of people. I don't believe that the Heaven Demonic Emperor can cover the sky with one hand. Child, Gu Tianxing said. Some things are not as simple as you think. It's better to give up on unrealistic thoughts and focus more on cultivation. Uncle, you don't believe me? Yes. Jun Changshao was very hurt in his heart. Uncle, although I don't have the strength to fight against the Heaven Demonic Emperor now. As the saying goes, don't bully the young for being poor. As long as you give me a few decades, no, just a few years, I will definitely lead everyone to defeat evil and change the upper universe for a bright universe. Jun Changshao said seriously. Gu Tianqing shook his head and said, if you want to establish an alliance, you must first have a base. Don't tell me you want the members to hide with you? I have a base, Jun Changshao said. The corner of Gu Tianqing's mouth twitched. Don't tell me it's the Eternal Ship, Jun Patriarch. Vice Leader Peng said. According to the information I recently obtained, the forces of the anti-heaven demonic emperors all have their bases in first-class planes. Not only are there many experts there, but there are also vast natural resources. What about you? Relying on a warship to fight a guerrilla war against the heaven demonic emperor. The two of them were not mocking Jun Changshao, nor were they deliberately attacking him. Instead, they wanted him to understand that establishing an alliance was not something that could be done just by opening and closing one's mouth. Troops, bases, and resources. Not a single one could be left out. Sigh. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, I originally wanted to communicate with you as an ordinary person, but what I got in return was doubts. I'll stop pretending. I'm the master of a realm. I'll lay all my cards on the table. Gu Tianqing, Vice Leader Peng, and the others almost laughed out loud. Whoosh. Whoosh. The scene changed, and the leader of the League of Stars and Seas appeared out of thin air in a world with rich natural attributes and beautiful scenery. A cool breeze blew gently, mixed with the fragrance of fragrant grass and herbs, making one feel refreshed. This, Gu Tianqing and the others were stunned. Everyone. Jun Changshao stood at the top of the mountain and said, Welcome to the eternal world. Welcome to my world. Welcome, welcome, a warm welcome. The people of various clans, led by the disciples of the Sect of all times, gathered in this area. Their voices were so loud that it could break the sky and shake the space. Gu Tianqing, Vice Leader Peng, and the others had been through a lot, but they suddenly found that they were all warriors with good cultivation in their field of vision. Their expressions suddenly froze on the spot. Chapter 1857. Ha! Ha! Hey! In the barracks outside Ironbone City, millions of soldiers were training. With each standard movement, a voice that could shatter the heavens would be heard. These soldiers came from different races, including humans, Soul Clan, Devil Clan, and Thunder Rhombus Clan. Without exception, they were all carefully selected. Gu Tianqing sat on the stage, feeling more and more shocked. There were two things that shocked him. First, judging from the aura of these soldiers, they were not ordinary middle or upper-level truth-seeking realm. Second, the quality of their weapons and equipment was extraordinary. Uncle, Jun Changshao said, these are the elite soldiers in my world. Their cultivation is a bit low, but in a few years, they can all break through to the half-step divine mystery realm. Vice Leader Peng, who was sitting next to him, felt a bit dizzy. To become a high-level member of the League of Stars and Seas, they must have talent and strength. In the past, it took thousands of years to break through to the half-step truth-seeking realm from the half-step truth-seeking realm. It was unimaginable to break through in a few years. Of course, Jun Changshao added, the equipment will also be upgraded. At present, this batch of armor and weapons is outdated. The master of the forging hall is actively researching new products. Nephew, with this scale and formation, have you been preparing to fight against the Celestial Devil Emperor for a long time? Gu Tianqing asked. Not long, Jun Changshao said. It's just a recent idea. Gosheng was not pretending. It was true that he had only recently decided to fight against the Celestial Devil Emperor. As for the many elites in the Eternal World, it was also because they could not let the people in the sect be idle. They had to make full use of their abilities. For example, Shui Ringui of the War Cavalry Hall now spent more time on the major races and used military skills to cultivate talents. And Fan Yezi, he was almost at the age of retirement. All kinds of armor and parts were given to him. He was busy every day, but he lived a fulfilling and happy life. To put it simply, the sect of all times was on the right track, and all the departments were operating in an orderly manner. Jun Changshao ordered the seniors and disciples to help the eternal world and the big clans when they were free, so that they could improve their realms faster. After all, the strength of the eternal world was equivalent to the strength of the sect of all times. Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from the sky. Gu Tianxing and the others raised their heads and saw pitch-black mechas slowly flying over their heads. From time to time, they would form the word one in the sky, and from time to time, they would form the word person, giving off a technological vibe. This is? Gu Tianxing was stunned. From the expressions of Vice Alliance leader Peng and the others, it was clear that they had never seen such a high-tech product before. I'm the 4th generation Diablo of the sect of all times, Jun Changshao said proudly. Of course, the 4th generation Diablo was the latest product developed by the Taishan elders after Shao Tian killed the demon. Other than being smaller in size, the design was very similar. It was a pity. It was limited by the technology. The 4th generation Diablo could only be regarded as a replica, and its performance was far inferior to Shao Tian's. The development of mecha required the world. A small step taken today would be a big step taken tomorrow after a long period of time. Uncle, Jun Changshao said again, the 4th generation Diablo's strength is comparable to the upper level of the truth-seeking realm. Gu Tianxing, Vice President Peng, and the others were shocked again. They swore that the mechas only made a rumbling sound when they flew over their heads, and there was no aura at all. How could it be comparable to the upper level of the truth-seeking realm? Boy, Gu Tianxing scolded. Don't fool us with a pile of scrap metal. Do you want to have a fight? Okay. The League of Stars and Seas sent an upper level of the truth-seeking realm martial artist. However, after the fight began, he was beaten to the ground by the 4th generation Diablo. In the end, he could only howl. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Sigh. Jingji, who was in the cockpit, took off her helmet and shook her head. Although this 4th generation mecha is much stronger than the previous generation, it's still a far cry from my precious baby. An imitation will always be an imitation. Seeing that their member was beaten to the point of being unable to fight back, the upper echelons of the League of Stars and Seas were all dumbfounded. During the fight, there was no martial Dao aura at all. This big black guy was probably a monster. Actually, Jun Changshao said, this 4th generation Diablo is nothing. The sect of all times has a mecha emperor that's as powerful as the prophet realm. Uncle, are you interested in having a fight? Gu Tianxing said. Then there's no need. Okay. Jun Changshao picked up the walkie-talkie and said coolly, come on out. As soon as he said that, another rumbling sound came. This time, Gu Tianxing and Deputy Leader Peng couldn't sit still anymore. They stood up and looked into the distance with shock in their eyes. From their field of vision, they could see steel warships gradually emerging from the mountains. 10, 20, 30, until 200 warships. That's not right. Jun Changshao only took 100 warships from the Celestial Demon Emperor. How could there be another 100 warships? Don't ask, just ask. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Huge warships slowly flew over the drill ground. The scene that appeared once again deeply shocked the upper echelons of the League of Stars and Seas. The military parade lasted for a while. After the announcement, Jun Changshao stood up and said with a smile, Uncle, is the sect of all times qualified to compete with the Celestial Demon Emperor? Gu Tianxing was silent for a while and said, not at the moment. Before entering the eternal world, he would definitely have said no. Now that he added at the moment, it was enough to show that his attitude had changed. So, Jun Changshao said, I need time. I need the help of Uncle and the League of Stars and Seas. Gu Tianxing looked at him and asked in a dignified tone, what do you want to compete with the Celestial Demon Emperor? Well, Jun Changshao fell into silence. Deputy Leader Peng and the others looked at him and seemed to be waiting for his answer. This young man was extraordinary. If he could keep a low profile and develop and practice, he would definitely have a bright future. However, Establishing an alliance to compete with the celestial demon emperor was completely equivalent to gambling with his life. Son. Gu Tianqing walked over and patted him on the shoulder. Even if the sky falls down, there are tall people in front of you to hold it up. Why do you have to get involved? Swish. Jun Changshao stood up. He stepped on the chair with one foot, his left wrist resting on his leg in a thinking posture, and his right hand slowly picked up the microphone. The camera suddenly changed to a KTV style, and the lyrics slowly came out below. Then he sang at the top of his voice. Ah! As long as everyone gives a little love, the world will become a beautiful world. Gosheng couldn't answer the question of why he competed with the celestial demon emperor. He could only respond with a sincere and affectionate song. Ah! Ah! The high notes gradually turned into low notes and slowly disappeared. Uncle. Jun Changshao turned around and said, "Now you can understand what I mean." He gradually closed his mouth because Gu Tianqing, who was standing behind him, was lying on the ground in a V shape, bleeding from his 7 orifices and foaming at the mouth. The camera zoomed out. Deputy Leader Peng, and the others on the general appointment platform, and millions of soldiers on the drill ground were all lying on the ground. Sigh. Jun Changshao squatted down and put his hand on Uncle Gu's face, so that he could close his eyes when he fainted. Then he squatted on the ground and held his head. How come nothing happened when I sang the purple golden hammer? The system said, I don't know about that. Chapter 1858. The song Devotion of Love shocked Gu Tianqing and the others. They vomited blood and fainted. It told them that as long as Jun Changshao sang with his heart, he would be able to sing with his heart. If that was the case, there was no need to establish the Jun Alliance or develop a sect. He could just sing a song to the Celestial Devil Emperor, through a loudspeaker. That would be the end of the story. Sorry. That was a serious and rigorous novel. Unorthodox methods would not work at all. Puff. The next day, Gu Tianqing recalled the soul-stirring song and couldn't help but spit out white foam again. So did Vice Leader Peng and the others. It would take time for them to recover from the damage to their souls. On the other hand, Li Qingyang and the others were quite normal. They had been deeply hurt and had learned to protect themselves. Uncle. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall and clasped his hands together. He said, "Please join me in dedicating love to make the world a better place." He almost sang the last few words. Everyone was so shocked that their heads almost exploded. Nephew. Gu Tianqing said with a serious face, "Fighting against the Celestial Devil Emperor is a difficult task. Are you sure you want to do this?" Yes, yes, and yes. Jun Changshao answered seriously. Because he had beaten Ling Li in the Galaxy competition, and was almost killed by the clone of the Celestial Devil Emperor, Gosheng knew that he would have to fight to the death with this ambitious hero. Okay. Gu Tianqing said, "The League of Stars and Seas is willing to help Alliance Leader Jun." He didn't call him Kid or Patriarch. Instead, he called him Alliance Leader. It meant that he was willing to join the Jun Alliance and fight against the Celestial Devil Emperor. Jun Changshao smiled brightly. The Jun Alliance, which was established on a whim, welcomed its first batch of members today. However, Gu Tianqing was confused. He asked, "What's going on in this world?" He was shocked by the millions of well-equipped soldiers, the countless mechas and battleships, and the eternal world. He was especially puzzled by how he had suddenly entered the eternal world, when he was just relaxing his soul. Since Gosheng had agreed to join the Jun Alliance, there was no need for him to hide the truth any longer. What? Upon hearing this, Gu Tianqing stood up and exclaimed, "This is the Xianyuan realm." Yes. Unbelievable. Gu Tianqing said in disbelief. Unbelievable. Jun Changshao said, before Senior Gu Xianyuan died, he used his divine ability to turn the Xianyuan realm into a grain of sand. I inherited it by chance. Gu Tianqing calmed down and said, Xianyuan realm was destroyed by the heavenly demon monarch. So, Jun Changshao's gaze was cold and stern as he said, "Now that I have inherited the Xianyuan realm, I will fight him to the death." Hearing this, Gu Tianqing understood. The so-called dedication of love and making the world a better place were all nonsense. The real reason was that he had inherited Gu Xuanyuan's realm and his hatred. Have you inherited Senior Gu's Xianyuan divine sword? Gu Tianqing asked. Xianyuan divine sword? Jun Changshao suddenly remembered that Gu Xianyuan had given a sword to a child before he died, and then sent him away. He shook his head and said, "No. What a pity." Gu Tianqing said, "The Xianyuan divine sword is the most powerful sword in the upper universe. If you can get it, you will be like a tiger that has grown wings." He had a rough understanding of Gu Xianyuan. Not only was his cultivation unfathomable, even his sword was a top-level divine weapon. Jun Changshao agreed. When he watched the remaining memory, the power of Senior Gu's sword was extremely terrifying. Countless subordinates of the heavenly demon monarch died under the sword. Unfortunately, they were taken away by the child. Was he still alive? Where was the sword? "Nephew," Gu Tianqing said, "since you have inherited the Xianyuan realm, you should focus on your cultivation instead of fighting the heavenly demon monarch in a hurry." "Of course I want to," Jun Changshao said bitterly, "but I'm already at odds with that guy. I might not have the time to grow." "Are you planning to fight the heavenly demon monarch with the Xianyuan realm as your base?" Although the inner realm is strong as a whole, we don't have enough top-level experts. That's why we need to recruit more and gather more forces. Jun Changshao said, "Uncle, you're considered someone important in the Ashen Cloud faction. Can you recruit them and let them become members of the Jun Alliance?" Gu Tianqing's lips twitched. So, it was not enough for him to join the Jun Alliance. He still had to help him recruit people. All right. Gu Tianqing agreed. Since he was already on this ship, he would not jump off halfway. He could only do his best to help him strengthen the Jun Alliance. In fact, as the major factions entered the scene, the situation of the universe would change. If Jun Changshao did not recruit him, he would be recruited by someone else sooner or later. The heavenly demon monarch was their common enemy. He had to gather everyone's strength. "Thank you, uncle." To welcome the League of Stars and Seas, Jun Changshao ordered Lu Wanshi to prepare a sumptuous meal. They ate until their souls floated and their states of mind were sublimated. "Since you've taken a gift from someone, you'll have to hand over it." Gu Tianqing quickly took action. He led Vice Alliance leader Peng and the others out of the Crossing Heaven realm, and began to persuade the experts of various realms. As a well-known figure in the Ashen Cloud faction, the alliance leader of the League of Stars and Seas was more important than the patriarch of the sect of all times. Moreover, Gu Tianqing was a good person. So in a short time, many warriors expressed their willingness to join the Jun Alliance to fight the heavenly demon monarch. However, the Ashen Cloud faction was not the most outstanding galaxy in the upper universe. Although they had recruited many experts, their overall strength was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm, or the half-step realm. There were only 2 people at the divine secret realm. "Uncle," Jun Changshao said, "we lack top-level experts. The upper echelons and disciples of the sect could be qualified for the truth-seeking realm and the half-step realm. What he needed now was those at the divine secret realm. At least when facing the heavenly demon monarch's army, they would not be at a disadvantage in terms of numbers and momentum. I want to find one too, but I can't find one." Gu Tianqing expressed his helplessness. "How about?" After a pause he said, "Let's go to the ruins of End Sword Saint." Jun Changshao thought for a while and said, "That's the only way." When he was escaping, he had planned to go to the ruins of End World, but he was afraid that it would be troublesome, so he gave up the idea. Now he could not care less. After all, it was related to the upper universe. No one could stay out of it. Wuxia cut through the void and flew toward the ruins of End World. As soon as Jun Changshao took action, a group of experts with the words, "Night King," engraved on their chests appeared. They stopped in the universe and chased after them after a certain method. "Kid." In the Tianyuan Prison Pagoda, Feng Wanli said casually, "I've roughly guessed your identity. If you don't want to make things too ugly, you'd better let us go." "Oh," Jun Changshao asked curiously, "what's my identity?" "Only the ruins of End Sword Saint has special swords and sword auras in the Grey Cloud branch. You must be related, said Feng wanly. Jun Changxiao said, "That's right. I'm close to the ruins of N Sword Saint." Since he thought so, then he would satisfy him. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of black shadows flew at high speed. The leader of the group determined from the flight path of Eternal, and said solemnly, "Are we going to the ruins of End World? Could Guardian Feng and the others have been captured by the ruins of End Sword Saint?" The Night King ordered Guardian Feng to rope in Jian Guishu, but there's no news now. They might have clashed with him, someone analyzed. Let's go. Find the ruins of End Sword Saint. Whoosh! Whoosh! Everyone sped up. After they left for a while, the Sky Devil Emperor's battleships gradually appeared. The captain sitting in the main warship said with a cold gaze, "Could it be that the eternal sect that has repeatedly opposed us has the backing of the ruins of End Sword Sage?" Headquarters sent news that the ruins of End Sword Saint established an organization called the Sword Alliance. The sect of all times should be one of them. Umph. The captain sneered and said, "Our emperor treated that old man with courtesy on account of him being a legend of the Tsungyun lineage. However, he didn't know what was good for him and dared to oppose us. Let the ruins of End World be reduced to ashes." If it was in the past, he wouldn't have dared to say this. However, the Sky Devil Emperor's general, King Gallo, had just defeated Jian Guishu not long ago. Jian Guishu should be injured. This was the best chance to eliminate him. Chapter 1859. Gu Tianxing knew where the ruins of End World was, so under his guidance, Eternal quickly arrived at the destination. What a powerful sword aura! Before entering this plane, Jun Changxiao could already feel the rich sword aura, and his admiration for the ruins of End Sword Saint increased. Especially when he thought of his disciple, Zhou Hong, who had been cultivating with him for 2 years, he wondered what he had achieved now. Whoosh! Eternal passed through the spatial barrier, and entered the ruins of End World. Perhaps because the Sword Saint lived in seclusion, this plane's heaven and earth attributes were relatively weak, but its sword aura and sword intent were very strong. It could be called a holy land for sword cultivators. Whoosh! Whoosh! Eternal landed smoothly. However, as soon as Jun Changxiao and the others walked out of the cabin door, thousands of sword cultivators had gathered around them. Judging from the eruption of sword aura, they were obviously not welcome. Everyone. Gu Tianxing cupped his hands and said, "I'm Gu Tianxing, the leader of the League of Stars and Seas. I'm here to visit Senior Sword Saint today." Ha ha ha. At that moment, a hearty laugh was heard. A middle-aged man who looked like a scholar walked over, and stroked his goatee with his hand. He smiled and said, "What brings you here, Leader Gu?" This person's aura was thick, and it was obvious that he was not a simple person. Pei Song? Gu Tianxing was rather surprised. "Why are you in the ruins of End World?" "I'm indebted to Senior Sword Saint." The middle-aged man named Pei Song smiled and said, "I've been recruited as an elder of the Sword Alliance." Gu Tianxing only remembered that the Sword Alliance founded by the ruins of End Sword Saint had been defeated by the Celestial Demon Emperor's subordinate, the Gallo King. It was over. There was no chance of recruitment. If the ruins of End Sword had not joined the organization, there might still be some hope, but now there was no hope at all. "This is?" Pei Song looked at Jun Changxiao. Because they knew each other, his tone was gentler. The Sword Alliance disciples withdrew their sword auras, and the atmosphere gradually eased. "Eternal." Just as Gu Tianxing was about to introduce him, Jun Changxiao interrupted. "The leader of the Jun Alliance, Jun Changxiao." This time, he had come to pay a visit to the Sinkhole Sword Saint, not as the patriarch, but as the alliance leader. Although they were similar, there were still differences. Jun Alliance? Pei Song looked at Gu Tianxing as if he had understood something. "You want to recruit Senior Sword Sage?" "No," Jun Changxiao said. "My disciple became a disciple of Senior Sword Saint mainly to pay him a visit." "Oh," Pei Song said in surprise. "You're the patriarch of the sect of all times." Senior Sword Saint's new disciple, Zhou Hong, came from a sect called the Sect of All Times. He had long heard of it. "That's true." Jun Changxiao's words and actions were really asking for a beating. I'm sorry. Pei Song said, Senior Sword Saint is in seclusion. Come visit another day. When Gu Tianqing heard that, he muttered in his heart. Could it be that Senior Sword Saint was injured in the battle with the Sky Demonic Emperor's subordinates? Whoosh. Whoosh. At that moment, the sky distorted, and martial artists flew in one after another. Judging from their attire, they were obviously from the Night King Alliance. Pei Song's expression turned ugly. Although the Sinkhole realm was not a major realm, it was still guarded by Senior Sword Saint. It was not a place where just anyone could come in. Alliance leader Gu, Pei Song said with a straight face, Your people? I don't know them. Gu Tianqing said. He did not know them, but Jun Changxiao naturally knew them. He thought to himself, why are the Night King Alliance people here again? As expected, a gray-haired old man among the martial artists who appeared locked his eyes on Eternal and said with a cold gaze, This kid is related to the Sinkhole Sword Saint. Sword Sinkhole. You're a little disloyal. Jun Changxiao suddenly realized that the Night King Alliance had really tied him to the Sinkhole Sword Saint, so he angrily rebuked, This is Senior Sword Saint's place of cultivation. Don't bark. Kinsey bark. It meant barking like a dog. When the pale old man heard that, he was unable to restrain his anger. Our Night King Alliance respects the Sinkhole Sword Saint as a senior, but your people kidnapped our alliance members. Is this what a man should do? Bullshit. Jun Changxiao roared. You were the ones who attacked me first. Don't accuse me first. Gu Tianqing broke down. Why is he shouting so loudly? Can't his attitude be a little better? Kid. The Night King Alliance expert said coldly. It's not your turn to speak here. Hurry up and get Sword Sinkhole to come out. This old man wants to reason with him. I'm sorry. Pei Song said. Senior Sword Saint is in seclusion. It's not convenient for him to meet guests. Please leave the Sinkhole realm quickly. He was considered to have a good temper. If it were someone with a bad temper, they would definitely not be able to tolerate someone shouting here, especially the patriarch of the sect of all times. His voice was like a megaphone. So, the Night King Alliance expert said coldly, is Sword Sinkhole going to be unreasonable and protect his subordinate? Fuck. Who is being unreasonable? Pei Song looked gentle, but that did not mean he did not have a temper. He pointed at the Night King Alliance expert and said, Please watch your words. This old man hates being pointed at the most. So what if I do? Come up. Come down. Both of them were angry. Their faces and noses were about to collide. Calm down, both of you. We're all martial artists. We see each other all the time. There's no need to make things so ugly. Bear with it for a while and calm the waves. Take a step back and you'll see the world. Jun Changxiao pulled the Night King Alliance expert one moment, then the Sword Alliance elder the next. After going back and forth like this, he was sweating profusely. No. The system broke down. This started because of him. Why are we fighting now? Humph. The Night King Alliance expert suppressed his anger and waved his sleeves. This old man did not come here to fight. Quickly call the Sword Saint out. I already said that Senior Sword Saint is in seclusion. Pei Song said emotionlessly, Come another day. The way I see it, he knows he's in the wrong and is too ashamed to come out. The Night King Alliance expert said. Old man. Pei Song raised his hand again. His scholarly demeanor was replaced by a societal one. He gritted his teeth and said, Watch your words. Calm down, both of you. Jun Changxiao came over to mediate again. It was as if he was a professional mediator. However, he did not know that the reason the two of them ended up like this was because of him. Whoosh. 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 Right at this moment, the space in the sky suddenly cracked. A gust of wind from the depths of the universe arrived. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Xiao. Xiao. Streaks of light flew over at an extremely fast speed. The Night King Alliance expert and Pei Song, who were about to fight, stopped and looked up with solemn gazes. At this moment, dozens of huge warships were floating in the sky of the ruins of End World. Jun Changxiao's gaze was solemn. From the shape of the warships, he immediately recognized that it was the demonic emperor's fleet. However, from the size and the energy radiance, it seemed to be much more advanced than the one he had stolen. I am the captain of the demonic emperor's sharp blade fleet. I'm here on orders to kill the patriarch of the sect of all times. A voice came from the main warship. Crack. Crack. At the same time, the bottom cabins of the dozens of warships opened. All sorts of fancy devices protruded out, and began to gather special energy radiances. The Night King Alliance is here too. Great, then let's kill them all. Boom. 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 As soon as he said that, the cannonball-like devices in the bottom cabins of the warships fired at the same time. Streaks of light that looked like nuclear bombs flew over, drawing out a beautiful scene. Oh no! Jun Changshao and Gu Tianxing's expressions changed. Ka. Yi Xingqian, Xiao Ziji and the others activated the text effect, and stood in front of the patriarch to protect him. However, they knew better than anyone that the other party had suddenly attacked with such powerful firepower. This time they were afraid. My domain. Don't be presumptuous. Suddenly, a sharp voice that seemed to split the sky came from behind. Before anyone could turn around, visible ripples of sword energy rippled across the entire plane. Bang. 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 In an instant, the cannonballs from the sky were all cut into pieces, creating a series of explosions that made everyone's eardrums buzz. Damn! Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. At this moment, gusts of wind blew, forcing him to turn his head stiffly. Thud! Thud! A plain-looking old man slowly walked out from the crowd, as if he was in slow motion. He placed his sword on the ground and stopped in front of everyone. His faded cloak fluttered in the wind, and two words could be vaguely seen engraved on its sword: Saint. His back. It deeply shocked Jun Changxiao. If one had to describe his momentum at this moment, it would be like the white-bearded old man who fought in the war. The difference was that one stood with a sword while the other stood with a sword. One was extremely burly while the other was extremely weak. Jun Changxiao secretly said, I'm definitely going to hug this thigh. Hitoe. The system spat out a mouthful of phlegm. Not only did it satisfy itself, but it also satisfied the reader. Chapter 1860. The ruins of N Sword Saint, who looked weak, stood in front of everyone, displaying the demeanor of a legend of the Blue Cloud lineage. While Jun Changxiao was shocked, he also decided to become friends with this senior despite their age difference. You're not injured? The Blade Warship's captain sounded surprised. According to the information sent by the higher-ups, the ruins of N Sword Saint was not only defeated by the Gallo King, but he was also heavily injured. Why did he look fine now? This point, Pei Song was also puzzled. After the Sword Saint returned, his face was pale. It was obvious that he was heavily injured. He then gave a few simple instructions and went into seclusion. Although I'm injured, the ruins of N Sword Saint's hands were still on his sword, he said calmly. But I can still deal with you small fries. His voice was calm, and his sword aura was strong. Senior, you're awesome. Jun Changxiao took advantage of the opportunity and said. The ruins of N Sword Saint said. You're the patriarch of my disciple, Zhou Hong? Whoosh. Jun Changxiao cupped his fists and said loudly. Patriarch of the Sect of all times and Alliance leader Jun Changxiao greets Senior Sword Saint. No matter what, he was still a junior. There was nothing wrong with using the word greet. The ruins of N Sword Saint nodded and praised. You're leading a sect at such a young age. You're indeed a young hero. Senior, you're too kind. It had to be said that Jun Changxiao was very humble when he was being humble. On the contrary, he was very high profile when he was being high profile. He was even beyond the category of human. Jun Patriarch, why did you come to the ruins of End Realm from so far away? The ruins of End Sword had a legendary aura around him. This made Jun Changxiao even more impressed, so he went straight to the point without beating around the bush. The Sky Devil Emperor is a scourge of the universe. Senior, please join my Jun Alliance, and work together to eradicate evil and protect the world's peace. His words were spoken clearly and forcefully. Gu Tianxing was speechless. This guy was still trying to recruit him when the enemy was right in front of them. Jun Patriarch is right. The ruins of End Sword Saint agreed. Everyone knows that the Sky Devil Emperor wants to destroy the upper universe. We have to work together to fight against him. Only then can we maintain the world's peace. Jun Changxiao was overjoyed. A legend was indeed a legend. He was not careless in the face of major issues. Since that's the case, the ruins of End Sword Saint continued. Jun Patriarch, why don't you bring your disciples into my sword alliance? Jun Changxiao was dumbfounded. I'm here to recruit you, not be recruited by you. The two of you. At this moment, the captain of the blade ship interrupted their conversation and said coldly, You are talking and laughing here. Are you looking down on me? Umph. Jun Changxiao sneered and said, Senior, leave this group of small fries to me. Please step back. All right. Jian Guishu quickly took a few steps back and gave him the stage to show off. Jun Changxiao was dumbfounded. I was just joking around. Why did he really back off? There was no other way. Since he had already said that, he could only bite the bullet and walk forward to confront the dozens of battleships. Forget it. Since he wanted to recruit such a legend powerhouse, he had to impress him with his strength. Get out of the way. Jun Changxiao roared. I'm going to get serious. Gu Tianxing and the others hurriedly stepped aside. At this moment, if the ruins of End Realm was compared to a stage to show off, then Jun Changxiao alone facing dozens of high-specification battleships presented a very spectacular scene. Whoosh! A pocket-sized saber appeared between his fingers. Whoosh! Whoosh! Jun Changxiao's black hair fluttered in the wind, revealing his knife-like face. A saber cultivator? The ruins of End Sword Saint said. As a veteran powerhouse, he had a knack for judging people. However, when he looked at Jun Changxiao, other than being a little annoying and a little despicable, he could not see anything else about him. Jian Guishu did not think that this person was a despicable person to the bone. He must be different, but he hit it better than others. Crack! Crack! At the bottom of the dozens of battleships gathered in the sky, many cannon-like objects protruded again. They locked onto Jun Changxiao, and the heaven and earth attribute kept gathering at the muzzles. It was not the first time that Jun Changxiao had fought with the demonic emperor's fleet. Most of the time, he sent a large number of subordinates. Now that the muzzles and cannons were coming out frequently, it felt like a bomber. In fact, the battleships they had encountered before were regular combat forces, but this sharp blade fleet was an elite force. They did not bring many soldiers, but they were strong in that they had many cannons powered by special arrays, and their main purpose was to destroy. Go against the Emperor. The captain's cold voice rang out. All of you must die. Hum. Hum. In an instant, the muzzles of the dozens of battleships flashed, and the heaven and earth attribute around them were instantly drawn over. Beep. Beep. The density of the heaven and earth attribute marked on the star map of Eternal instantly dropped to 0. In fact, it could be seen with the naked eye that the heaven and earth attribute around them seemed to have dried up because of the crazy absorption. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The light gathered at the muzzles became brighter and brighter, and extremely powerful energy ripples burst out. Everyone's expression gradually turned solemn, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. Dazzling streams of light gathered at the bottom of the dozens of battleships, which brought about a huge threat to them. They could even foresee that an even more terrifying stream of light cannons bombarding them was about to happen. Nephew, Gu Tianxing called out, but when he saw Jun Changxiao standing proudly in front of him, exuding an unyielding aura, he finally swallowed his words. His intuition told him that since he dared to face so many battleships, he must have absolute confidence. Uncle, Senior Sword Sage. Everyone present. Jun Changxiao turned his head and said, This Jun doesn't have any grand ambitions in his life. I don't want to be a hero. I just want to run the sect in a stable manner. I want to give my disciples a home to cultivate. Don't laugh. Gosheng had always thought so. However, Jun Changxiao's expression suddenly became serious, and he said clearly, Everyone is responsible for the rise and fall of the universe. Today, The celestial demon emperor is harming the common people. As one of them, Jun should shed his blood for this world. Even if I die, I will not let this world down. Hearing this, the ruins of End Sword Sage's eyes flashed with approval. Then you can die together with the world. The captain of the Blade warship said coldly. Boom, 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 boom. In an instant, the cannons in the various battleships shot out energy that had been ready for a long time, and the energy that shook space roared out. From Jun Changxiao's perspective, in the sky ahead, streams of light that resembled intercontinental missiles pressed down from different angles, carrying the power of heaven and earth, instantly squeezing and tearing everything apart. Everyone turned pale with fright. What level of array did these battleships gather to be able to erupt with such terrifying energy? Far from it. Inside the Eternal, the Taishian elder held his head and said, "Our skills are far inferior compared to them." Unlike this technical geek, the upper echelons and disciples of the sect were worried about the patriarch, because the streams of light that could tear everything apart were locked onto him. If it exploded, it would definitely be unimaginable. Patriarch. Lu Wanshi and Yao Minjing's eyes turned red. The two of them silently took out their mourning clothes and waited for the bombs to explode on the spot. Clang, however, the moment the streams of light that resembled missiles blasted in a gorgeous manner, the sound of a sword being drawn suddenly rang out, suppressing the whistling sound of the streams of light tearing through space. It was so crisp, so ethereal. Huff, 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 huff. A vast sword aura gushed out crazily like a tide. The ruins of End Sword Sage looked at Jun Changxiao with a dumbfounded expression, looking at the pocket-sized broken sword that was gradually evolving into a huge broken sword. Swish, swish. At the same time, attributes similar to red flames shrouded Jun Changxiao's body. His eyes gradually sharpened, and the words king and tyrant were engraved on his face. He suddenly raised his sword and said, "The day the broken sword reappears, the time when the tyrant king returns." Aura, special effects. They were rendered to the extreme. The streams of light that came from all directions seemed to be restrained by some kind of force and suddenly slowed down. The heaven and earth attributes of the converging warheads were also greatly weakened. If the current area was described as a balloon that had been sucked dry, at this moment, as the attributes continued to return, it began to expand until it returned to its original saturated state. What was the reason? It was because the fifth form of the hard-to-retract blade was unsealed. Was it just to control the cannonballs? No. The show had just begun. Jun Changxiao, who was shrouded in red light, waved his arm, and the huge broken sword slashed from bottom to top. Boom, 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 boom. Wherever the sword aura and sword momentum passed, the frozen cannonballs exploded. The entire sky was as beautiful as firecrackers and fireworks during a festival. How is this possible? In the main battleship, the captain stood up in shock. Then, he turned his head stiffly and saw Jun Changxiao, who was shrouded in red flames outside the window, gently carrying the huge sword on his shoulder. Beep, 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 beep. The alarm sounded in the cockpit, and the star map and various data suddenly went out. "Captain," the crew member said in horror, "the Sharp Blade's driving system is paralyzed." He stopped abruptly because he saw a vertical crack appear on the captain's forehead, and then it spread down the captain's nose. It cracked. The captain cracked. Bam. At this moment, the captain of the Sharp Blade exploded, and his flesh and blood splattered on the wall. As he died, the cracks continued to spread on the ground of the battleship, like a cucumber that had been cut open from the front. From this, it could be seen that the internal program of the battleship had been paralyzed. It had been cut by Jun Changxiao, and it had coincidentally passed through the captain's body. Boom. Boom. 2 parts of the battleship fell to the ground. Perhaps because of the material and the speed of the cut, it did not cause a huge explosion. Thank goodness. The Taishian elder said in relief. Whoosh. Whoosh. It was at this moment that Jun Changxiao, who was holding the fifth form of hard to retract, turned into a sky full of afterimages, and flew here and there until he stood in the sky with his sword horizontally. Behind him, The warships collapsed and slowly fell down. At this point, the dozens of bombardment battleships were all destroyed. Seeing this, the Taishan elder clutched his chest and howled in his heart, "Not a single intact battleship is left for me." The saddest one was Jingjiu. Previously, she had controlled Xiaotian to destroy a few battleships and was sent to clean the toilets. Now the patriarch had destroyed even more advanced battleships. What should she say? The sect master wanted to shock the ruins of the End and the Nanking Alliance. That's why he used such a tyrannical method to destroy all the warships. Young Master Yuan said with deep respect. Hall Master Z clenched his fists. I'm also destroying my clothes to shock the enemy. I don't expect to be admired, but don't punish me afterward. The ultimate world. The sword aura raged wildly. Jun Changshao stood in the sky like a god, his domineering aura filling the world. In fact, he had unsealed once before and sent the top-level Feng Wanli to the Tianyuan prison pagoda. He should have seen the special effects in aura, but why did it seem more shocking this time? It was simple. There was an audience present. As the saying goes, not returning to one's hometown is like walking in the night. Without a bystander, even if the upper universe was cut down, the atmosphere would not be expressed. Jun Changshao destroyed the entire fleet with lightning speed, which really shocked Gu Tianxing and the others. Although they did not want to overdo it, at this moment, everyone's evaluation of Go Sheng was really terrifying. Especially the sword saint of the ultimate. His turbid eyes were filled with shock, and his skinny fingers were trembling uncontrollably, destroying the enemy with the sword. The sword saint was so shocked that his hands were trembling. If it was anyone else, it would be enough to brag about for a lifetime. Senior. Jun Changshao retracted his sword and cupped his fists. I've embarrassed myself. Everyone's mouth twitched. Destroying so many battleships in such a short time. You are not just making a fool of yourself. You are making an eye-popping spectacle. The Nanking Alliance expert said coldly, "Let's go." Jun Changxiao's display of strength terrified him, so he did not care about settling the score. He had to leave the ultimate world as soon as possible. Whoosh. Whoosh. The Nanking Alliance experts left one after another. However, when they entered the spatial barrier, they heard Jun Changxiao say, "Go back and tell your Night King that if you want to destroy the celestial demonic emperor, joining the Nanking Alliance is the right way." TSK. The Nanking Alliance expert sneered, then ran faster than the other, afraid that they would be cut down by that guy if they were too slow. In the bamboo forest, Zhou Hong stood in front of his fellow sect members, a rare smile on his face. He had been cultivating in the ultimate world for 2 years, and he missed his sect. Now that his fellow sect members were here, he was naturally happy. Junior brother Zhou. Su Xiaoma sat next to him and smiled. "How's your sword, Dao?" "Not bad," Zhou Hong said. Su Xiaoma stood up and patted his butt. "How about we spar?" "Let's not," Zhou Hong said. "I'm afraid you'll be shocked." "Aya," Su Xiaoma said. "He's a little arrogant." "If you don't like him, then spar with him," Yi Xingchen instigated. Su Xiaoma smiled awkwardly. "I don't have time to spar. Junior brother Yi, you can try if you want." Among the core disciples of the sect of all times, Zhou Hong did not have much screen time, but he specialized in the sword Dao and always gave people an unfathomable feeling. So if they really spar, he did not have much confidence. "Not interested," Yi Xingchen said lightly. Everyone laughed. Junior brother Yi is not interested actually meant that he was not confident. That's strange. Su Xiaoma looked at the bamboo house in the distance and changed the topic. Patriarch has gone in for 2 hours. Why hasn't he come out yet? Maybe he's talking about the sword Dao with senior sword saint, Li Qingyang said. In the bamboo house. The layout was simple and unadorned. Jun Changshao sat cross-legged in front of the table and took a sip of tea. He praised, "Not bad." Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu sat beside him and filled his cup again. A legendary sword saint of a generation actually took the initiative to pour tea for a junior. If this spread, it would definitely shock the entire Ashen Cloud faculty. "Senior," Jun Changshao said bitterly. "I've already drunk dozens of cups. Can we get to the point? Okay. Jian Guishu put down the teapot and looked over with a serious expression. May I ask who Jun Patriarch's master is? Jun Changxiao's strong performance back then was just watching for fun to outsiders, but to an expert like him, it was definitely watching the door. After a moment of silence, Jun Changxiao said, the 7 profound sage. What? The Guishu sword saint stood up and exclaimed, Jun Patriarch's master is a martial arts legend. That's right. Jun Changxiao's expression showed that he wanted to hide it but could not. In short, he was very conflicted and uncomfortable. The Guishu sword saint's expression changed again and again. As a legendary expert, his ability to control his emotions should be very strong. But at this moment, his heartbeat was accelerating and his breathing was rapid. The 7 profound sage. That was an existence that was regarded as a martial arts legend by the beings of the upper universe. Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu calmed down and said with a trembling voice, your broken sword is the 7 profound sage sword. Jun Changxiao made up a name. Jian Guishu immediately deduced from the word 7 profound that this must be the sword of a martial arts legend, so he said excitedly, since Jun Patriarch can inherit senior 7 profound sword, he can definitely inherit. After a pause he said, Xianyuan divine sword. Chapter 1861. The Xianyuan divine sword? Upon hearing these words, Jun Changxiao immediately recalled the scenes he had seen in the illusion. Before Gu Xianyuan died, he had given the sword he had used to kill his enemies to a child. Wait a moment. Jun Changxiao immediately grasped the crux of the matter. He shot to his feet and exclaimed, Senior, could you be the child Gu Xianyuan gave away back then? Sword Saint. And the Xianyuan divine sword. Just a little thought and he would understand. You, Jian Guishu's hands trembled. How do you know that child? From his expression and actions, he seemed to be in great disbelief and excitement. Because this junior once unintentionally entered an illusory realm and personally witnessed the scene of Senior Gu resisting the heavenly devil emperor until his death. Jun Chang said with a smile. Jian Guishu's hands trembled even faster. Divination. Suddenly he looked up at the sky and said, you were right. This old man really can meet the fated one in this lifetime. Divination? What did this have to do with him? Jun Changxiao was confused. Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu stood up and said, please come with this old man. The two left the bamboo hut and stopped in front of a stone wall in the back of the mountain. Boom. Jian Guishu placed his hand on an inconspicuous groove. A stone door slowly opened, and a historical aura blew in. Please. Jun Changxiao entered, puzzled. Behind the door was a passageway that was not too narrow. Judging from the dull surface of the walls on both sides, it was probably man-made and even had some history. The passageway was parallel at first, but it gradually sloped downward. The two walked for an unknown period of time before finally entering a spacious cave. There were 8 large pillars in the cave that served as support points. Lifelike wyverns and beasts were carved on them. There was a stone platform in the center. 2 statues were erected on the platform. A little girl hugging a sword and a black-robed middle-aged man guarding her. Jun Changxiao's expression was solemn. Wasn't that middle-aged man guarding the child the sword saint of Guishu? And that sword he was hugging? Jun Changxiao could no longer suppress his emotions. He blurted out, Senior Gu's Xianyuan divine sword? Not bad. The ruins of Sinkhole Sword Saint said seriously. In other words, Jun Changxiao said with a frown, the little girl you're protecting is the person Senior Gu sent out. Not bad. Jun Changxiao was silent. Before inheriting the Xianyuan realm, he had only known that the one who had been sent out was a child. However, he had never been able to tell the gender of the child. Now he had finally found out that it was a girl. Where is she? Let's go. Where did you go? I've searched all over the upper universe, but I haven't found any news. At this point, a pained expression appeared on Jian Guishu's face, as if he was deeply blaming himself for not being able to protect that child. What is your relationship with Senior Gu? Jun Changxiao asked. A teacher and a friend. Memories of the past gradually surfaced in Jian Guishu's eyes, and his thoughts gradually drifted to the youth that he had once lost. Senior, Jun Changshao interrupted. Where's the Xianyuan divine sword? AI. Jian Guishu sighed. It's a long story. Then let's put it simply, Jun Changshao said. I've just destroyed the demonic emperor's fleet. Time doesn't allow you to play with memories. The system was speechless. He wasted such a good opportunity. There was a hidden chamber in the cave. When Jun Changshao walked in, the first thing he saw was a simple and unadorned sword hanging on the wall. Jun Patriarch, Jian Guishu said, this is the Xianyuan divine sword. Jun Changshao's expression was solemn. The sword hung on the wall. It looked simple and unadorned, but the aura it exuded was enough to move people. It even evoked the scenes they had seen in the illusion, where they saw the man who fought against an army of thousands of men and horses by himself. Can I take it? Yes. Jian Guishu added. This sword was prepared for the fated one. Whoosh! Jun Changshao strode forward. As he got closer and closer to the Xianyuan divine sword, he felt an even more shocking aura. Gosheng was usually very playful, but today, he was especially serious. He even had a heart of admiration. Jian Guishu, who was standing behind him, also became more and more excited. He was younger than Gu Xianyuan in terms of seniority. In that era he was definitely a little fan. Even though he had the title of Sword Saint now, he had been guided by the other party. Therefore he had always guarded this sword, waiting for the fated one to inherit it. The only pain was, the disciples who did not protect Gu Xianyuan well were still alive. Bang! While Jian Guishu was thinking, Jun Changshao was bounced back and slammed into the wall. His raised hand trembled violently as if it had been electrocuted. Seeing this, Jian Guishu's heart sank. Jun Patriarch went to touch it and was bounced away. This meant that there was no fate. Jun Patriarch, Jian Guishu said bitterly. It seems that you are not the person the Xianyuan divine sword is waiting for. Let me try again. Jun Changshao did not intend to give up. He walked toward the Xianyuan divine sword, but just as he reached out to touch it, he was sent flying like an electric shock. Sigh. Jian Guishu looked up at the sky and sighed. After waiting for countless years, he thought that he had finally met the fated one. In the end, reality gave him a ruthless blow. Uncomfortable. He wanted to cry. I don't believe it. Jun Changshao rolled up his sleeves and rushed over again. The camera turned and saw Gosheng lying on the ground, foaming at the mouth. Clearly he was not fated with the Xianyuan divine sword. As for his sorry state, although it was partly because of the electric shock, it was more of the side effect of using the unstoppable blade. Senior. What's the girl's name? After a few days of recuperation, although Jun Changshao was very weak, he could speak. The Xianyuan divine sword was hidden in the secret chamber. Because he was not fated to obtain it, he began to ask about the girl holding the sword. He even wondered if she knew the secret of how to grasp it. Jian Guishu said, the girl's name is Shi Jingxian. Jun Changshao directly spat out all the tea in his mouth. Jian Guishu reached out to wipe the tea on his face and asked in confusion, Jun Patriarch, what's wrong with you? Ning. The system imitated the prompt and said, Shi Jingxuan's side task has been triggered. No, nothing. Jun Changshao gradually calmed down and said to himself, it should be just the same name, right? When Jian Guishu said the name, Gosheng immediately thought of the palace master of Miaohua Palace, who was in charge of the sect in the eternal world. But Gu Xuanyuan's disciple had been sent out a long time ago. The age of the two did not match at all. Same name. It should be just the same name. The system said. Does the host still remember that Gu Hongzhenren once said that palace master she is the child of the dimension? What do you mean? Gu Xianyuan should be regarded as the master of the Xianyuan realm. He even risked his life to protect it, and his disciple is. Think carefully, think carefully. Jun Changshao fell silent. Do I need to think carefully? It's easy to figure it out with my toes. What are you waiting for? The system said, hurry back to the eternal world and bring Palace Master Shi out. Maybe then you can control the Xianyuan divine sword. Jun Changshao was speechless and said, I'm not even in a hurry to become the emperor. Why are you a eunuch? I'm just worried about Palace Master Shi. Her interstellar travel with the host is almost like air. Wait, who are you calling a eunuch? Chapter 1862. The creatures of the falling star continent had all moved into the eternal world, and the major sects had chosen their own mountains. The mountains were also divided into different grades and good ones. Some places had strong heaven and earth attributes, while others were relatively weak. Therefore, choosing a mountain was a big deal for future development. The sects that entered the eternal world did not have the right to choose, because the best feng shui places were usually distributed by the eternal sect. They could not occupy them as they wished. For example, the two areas closest to the Ironbone Mountain had mountains and lakes. From the perspective of feng shui, it was definitely a first-class place for crouching dragons and crouching tigers. If it wasn't allocated, the major sects would definitely fight over it. Who would get such a good place in the end? Songshan Sect. Miaohua Palace. The major sects had no objection to this at all. The reason was simple. When the sect of all times developed in the Falling Star continent, it was in an alliance with the two major sections. Over the years, the senior positions in the Songshan sect had changed a lot. The former elder Ma Yunting became the new sect leader. Oh no, patriarch. The former fifth-class sect had become a second-class sect. Like the Songshan sect, the Miaohua Palace's overall strength had increased rapidly after entering the eternal world. It had become one of the top sects in the inner world. The two of them had improved so quickly because Jun Changshao had sent them elixirs, resources, and even talents. The sect of all times would open the mountain gate to recruit disciples every year, but only a small number of people could be accepted. Therefore, those who were eliminated would be recommended to the nearest Songshan sect, or Miaohua Palace. To put it bluntly, the sect of all times would choose the best. The Songshan sect and Miaohua Palace would choose the second best. Those who were not chosen would depend on how the major sects fought over them. If a sect wanted to be strong and prosperous, the blood of the younger generation was indispensable. The two major sects were located in feng shui places, and they could choose talents with good aptitudes. Naturally, they would become stronger and stronger. It hadn't been long since they entered the eternal world. As time passed, the Songshan sect and Miaohua Palace would become stronger and stronger. There was no doubt that they would become the two strongest sects after the sect of all times. There's no Jun patriarch. On the martial arts practice field, Ma Yunting pointed to the Ironbone Mountain in the distance and said loudly, "There's no Songshan sect today, no flourishing world." When the disciples heard this, their eyes filled with admiration. "Patriarch," someone said, "can you tell us the story of Songshan sect and the sect of all times?" The eyes of the disciples. Most of the disciples gathered at the martial arts practice field had just joined the sect a few years ago. Although they knew that the sect and the eternal sect had an alliance, they did not know much about the history of the sect. The camera slowly moved to the sky. When it landed again, the scene had already returned to a few decades ago. The scene of the recruitment of the numerous sects in Qingyang City. For Ma Yunting, he could brag about meeting Jun Changshao for the rest of his life. Whoosh! Suddenly, a streamer flew over the Songshan sect, interrupting Ma Yunting's memory, and said happily, "Jun Patriarch." Yes, it was Jun Changshao. But he didn't come to the Songshan sect. He just happened to pass by and went to the Miaohua Palace. Maybe he had something urgent, and didn't have time to say hello to his old friend. It's really Jun Patriarch. Our God. The disciples of the Songshan sect were so excited that they almost jumped up. All the creatures in the eternal world had regarded Jun Changshao as a god. Patriarch. Wang Donglin, who had been promoted to first elder, came out of the inner yard and asked in confusion, "Why is Jun Patriarch free to go to the Miaohua Palace today?" "It's a bit strange," Ma Yunting said. Most of them who had been friends with the sect of all times in the early years knew that Jun Changshao and the master of the Miaohua Palace had a secret story, but they didn't seem to have much contact in recent years. The Miaohua Palace. It was surrounded by mountains and rivers. The environment was beautiful. Unlike the Tsongshan sect, this sect had always insisted on the old way of only recruiting female disciples. The number of famous female disciples in the sect of all times could be counted with 10 fingers. But the Miaohua Palace was full of female disciples. Senior brotherly. In an open space in the mountain, a beautiful girl said shyly, "Thank you. Our sects are allies. It's natural for us to help each other." Li Tiantian grinned. No. Why was this guy in the Miaohua Palace? However, when the camera panned to other areas, Yang Yuhua, Long Xiang, and the others were all instructing the girls in martial arts. Their attentiveness was no less than that of the sect elders teaching in the martial arts hall. On the contrary, not a single disciple of the sect of all times was seen in the Tsongshan sect. This was too realistic. Wush Jun Changshao flew into the Miaohua Palace and landed on the training field. Oh no! Why is the patriarch here? Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, Li Tiantian and the others disappeared from the Miaohua Palace. Their movement techniques were superb. Jun Changshao stabilized himself and shook his head. Elder Wei, I don't forbid you from flirting. Why do you have to be so sneaky? Elder Wei, who was about to sneak away, smiled awkwardly. Jun Patriarch. Leng Xingyue walked out of the hall and rolled her eyes at the guy hiding in the dark. Then she asked, "What brings you to my Miaohua Palace?" Jun Changshao asked, "Where's Palace Lord Shi?" "She's in seclusion. When will she be out?" 3 to 5 months if she's fast. 3 to 5 years if she's slow. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. "I have something important to do. Can I trouble you to inform her?" There's no need to inform her. I'm already out." Suddenly, Shi Jingshuan's light voice came from the inner court. Leng Xingyue was speechless. The palace lord was in seclusion to improve her cultivation level. She even told everyone not to disturb her. However, when Jun Changshao came, she couldn't sit still. Sigh. "My silly palace lord. He already has a wife. Why do you keep thinking about him?" At this moment, Shi Jingxian walked out of the inner court. She was wearing a light yellow dress and had a bright smile on her fair face. "All right. My palace lord has even changed her clothes." Jun Patriarch. Shi Jingxian smiled. "What brings you here?" "I found a sword. It might be related to Palace Lord Shi's identity," Jun Changshao said with a serious expression. "Identity?" Shi Jingshuan's eyes were filled with astonishment. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the ruins of Endworld, Jun Changshao and Shi Jingxian appeared out of thin air. Gosheng brought her out and paid attention to the changes in her expression. In the end, he didn't see anything. "Jun Patriarch, where's the sword? Follow me." The two of them walked to the stone wall outside the bamboo forest, and walked all the way to the secret chamber, where the Xianyuan divine sword was hung. After carefully examining Shi Jingxian, the ruins of En Sword Sage shook his head. She doesn't look like her. He naturally knew that children's appearances would change when they reached adulthood. However, at least he could find similarities. The girl in front of him and Gu Xuanyuan's disciple were two completely different people. "Palace Lord Shi." Jun Changshao pointed at the Xianyuan divine sword. "Have you seen this before?" "No." Shi Jingxian shook her head. "All right." Jun Changshao was speechless. As expected, it's just someone with the same name. In fact, Gosheng already had a premonition when he brought Shi Jingxian to the secret chamber. This was because she didn't show any fluctuations in her emotions from beginning to end. There was still a blank look in her eyes. It was enough to show that everything here was very unfamiliar to her. Chapter 1863. Jun Changshao really wanted to obtain the Xianyuan sword. Not to mention how strong the weapon was. At least it could be considered as inheriting Gu Xuanyuan's will again. From the ruins of En Sword Saint, he found out that the girl's name was Shi Jingxian, which happened to have the same name as Palace Master Shi. In the end, he was overthinking it. Sigh. Jun Changshao thought to himself. How can there be so many coincidences in the world? And I just had to meet them all. The system took the opportunity to ridicule him. It's rare for the host to realize this. June Patriarch. Shi Jingxian took 2 steps forward and asked, "Is this the sword you're talking about?" "Yes. Can I take it down?" "Please don't." Before Jun Changshao could finish his words, his eyes widened, because Shi Jingxian had already taken the Xianyuan sword in her hand and gently caressed the engraved lines on the scabbard. Actually, she took it down easily. The ruins of N Sword Saint was dumbfounded, and then he said with joy, "She is the fated person that Senior Gu has been waiting for." Wei Buzi had once divined for him, saying that not long later, the Xianyuan sword would wait for the fated person. At first, he thought it was Jun Changshao, but now he knew that the fated person was her. Ha ha ha. Jian Guishu laughed out loud with tears in his eyes. "Senior Gu, I Jian Guishu will not let you down." Back then, Gu Xianyuan had only entrusted his disciple to him, but he had willingly taken on the responsibility of guarding the Xianyuan sword. Today, the fated person had finally come, and he had fulfilled one of his wishes. Jun Changshao was also quite excited. Although the sword did not recognize him, it recognized Shi Jingxian. They were all good friends, so it didn't matter who it was given to. Jun Patriarch. Shi Jingxian caressed the Xianyuan sword lovingly as she asked weakly, "Can I draw the sword?" "Sure, do as you wish." Clang, Shi Jingxian placed one hand on the hilt of the sword, and easily pulled it out of the scabbard. The sound echoed in the secret room. Jun Changshao didn't have time to look at the Xianyuan divine sword, because the moment it was unsheathed, a special sword momentum spread out from the gap, instantly enveloping Shi Jingshuan's body, and a painful expression appeared on her face. Not good. Jun Changshao saw that the situation was bad, and reached out to grab Palace Master Shi. However, as soon as his 5 fingers touched the sword Shi, he felt as if he had been hit by a huge hammer. His entire body slammed into the wall with a bang. Boom. There was a powerful force in the sword force, and Jian Guisu was unavoidably sent flying. He exclaimed, "This is Senior Gu's celestial dipper sword intent." "What do you mean?" Jun Changshao said as he suppressed the pain in his chest. Jian Guishu said, "Senior Gu is a dual cultivator of sword and martial arts. He created his own celestial dipper sword intent, and its sharpness is unparalleled in the upper universe. I never thought that such a supreme sword intent would be sealed in the Xianyuan divine sword. Get to the point." Jun Changshao wasn't interested in listening to the story. He was more concerned about Palace Master Shi's safety. Jian Guishu said, "This girl is inheriting Senior Gu's celestial dipper sword intent. Once she masters it, her attainments in swordsmanship will definitely improve by leaps and bounds, and the benefits will be even greater than if she had the Xianyuan divine sword." "I see." Jun Changshao relaxed slightly. It seemed that this was a great opportunity. If Palace Master Shi could inherit it, she should benefit greatly. Sigh. The system said, "The girl who is about to disappear in the long river of history is finally going to welcome a wave of epic level strengthening? It's a pity that the eldest disciple is going further and further away." "Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Jun Changshao said. "To be honest, I'm actually the embodiment of justice for the readers. Because I exist in a different dimension, you can't see their complaints, so they can only use me to express it," the system said seriously. Scram. Doryman said, "You're a eunuch. A guy who pretends to be a girl has the cheek to talk about me." He to a whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sword momentum was released more and more intensely, and Shi Jingshuan's expression became more and more painful, especially her black hair fluttering, satisfying the reader's wish of not giving a close-up of her hair. "Senior. Is she okay?" Jun Changshao was worried. Jian Guishu said solemnly, "Inheriting the celestial dipper sword intent is not only an opportunity for her, but also a crisis." Jun Changshao wanted to rush over and pull her out. He didn't dare to gamble. Whoosh. At this moment, a majestic wave of air erupted from Shi Jingshuan's body, and the gathered sword intent was pushed out, then formed a vortex and gathered in front of her, maintaining a safe distance. Without the disturbance of the sword intent, the pain on Shi Jingshuan's face gradually weakened. Before Jun Changshao could relax, he saw the woman's face turn from gentle to cold, and her clear eyes gradually became turbid and violent. This scene seemed familiar. Trouble! Jun Changshao exclaimed. Palace Master Shi's other personality has appeared again. Back in the Falling Star continent, Shi Jingxian was blind, and every time she was depressed, she would enter another personality. Later, she was cured by the vacuum cleaner, and so far, it had not recurred. No. Strictly speaking, it was to purify the special attribute that existed in her body. However, today, she inherited the celestial dipper sword intent, and was actually stimulated again, and her violent appearance was no different from before, or even worse. Palace Master Shi. Whoosh! The blackened Shi Jingxian turned her face, and the Xianyuan divine sword, shrouded in light, cut through the void, and slashed over with the power to cut through space. In the bamboo forest, Li Qingyang and the others were watching Zhou Hong's sword dance mesmerized. This guy. Yi Xingqian secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, I didn't ask him to spar. Swordsmanship was different, and martial arts had extremely detailed divisions, so everyone could only judge how strong Zhou Hong's improvement was through the movement of the sword and the eruption of sword momentum. Boom! Suddenly the mountain in the distance exploded. What's going on? Su Xiaoma was so shocked that he almost jumped up. He hurriedly turned his head and saw the patriarch stumbling in the distance, and from the situation, it seemed that he had been beaten up. Clang! Clang! In an instant, the nearby disciples of the sect of all times all drew their swords and stood on the left and right sides of the patriarch at lightning speed, staring angrily at the dust-filled area in front of them. Thud! Thud! A graceful figure walked out of the dust, wearing a pale yellow dress and fluffy hair. The sharp sword in her hand stuck close to the ground, drawing slender sword marks. Everyone looked and was shocked. Palace Master Shi? Goodbye. Excuse me. Whoosh. Whoosh. In an instant, the disciples gathered around Jun Changshao collectively disappeared, and even returned to the scene of admiring the sword, flowers and bamboo forest, as if nothing had happened and they had not seen anything. Die! Shi Jingxian lowered her head and walked with her sword. Palace Master Shi. Jun Changshao said loudly, "It's me." It was fine if he did not speak, but the moment he spoke, the hostility in Shi Jingxuan's eyes intensified, and she raised her sword to attack. Swish. Swish. Intricate sword auras instantly rippled in the bamboo forest. At first, there was no problem, but when the two of them confronted each other, one attacking and one defending, the surrounding bamboos all broke instantly. Jian Guishu, who walked out of the ruins, saw this and spat out a mouthful of blood. These bamboos were all very precious species, and they had been wholeheartedly cultivated. Now they were all destroyed. Palace Master Shi. Jun Changshao said solemnly, "Since you have lost your mind again, Jun can only offend you." Whoosh. 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 In an instant, an explosive aura erupted and spread out in all directions like a flood. Because the explosion was too fierce, everywhere it passed, no matter if it was the bamboo, bamboo roots, bamboo shoots, or bamboo leaves, everything was turned into powder. It was like a paradise, and it instantly became a barren land. Plop. Jian Guishu collapsed on the ground and said in despair, "It's gone. It's all gone." Chapter 1864. Shi Jingxian went berserk. Jun Changshao had to stop her in time. Otherwise, this picturesque bamboo forest would suffer a calamity. If Jian Guishu knew what Gosheng was thinking, he would definitely shout at him. "I thank you. I thank you, the entire sect." Previous chapter, next chapter, boom. Previous chapter, next chapter, boom. In the ruins, sword chi crisscrossed. The dark Shi Jingxian held the Xianyuan divine sword and attacked crazily like a female devil. The evil aura that filled the air became more and more intense. If that was all, it wouldn't be too much of a problem. The key was that the evil aura was wrapped in a sharp sword aura, which was obviously the Tiangang sword intent that Jian Guishu had mentioned. Whoosh whoosh. The evil aura and sword intent filled Shi Jingxuan's body. His messy long hair and pitch-black eyes gradually turned as red as blood. The woman who was as gentle as water suddenly became wild. This contrast was a bit big. However, there was one thing to say. The red-haired and red-eyed Shi Jingxian was even more beautiful. What Jun Changshao cared about was not whether she was beautiful or not. What he cared about was that after her hair and eyes turned red, the sword aura became stronger and stronger. Ding! Suddenly, the Xianyuan divine sword cut through the void and slashed over, forcing Go Sheng to take out the immortal sword to block in front of him. Ding ding ding! Ding ding ding! The two swords crossed each other, accompanied by the eruption of flames. One was retreating while the other was pressing down. Ka-ka! Ka-ka-ka! The ground cracked and dust flew. The bamboo species that had been destroyed were very rare, and even if they could be planted, they would have to look at the soil. Now that there were two immortals fighting on the face, it would definitely be hard to escape. Jian Guisu roared, "Stop! All of you stop! Don't fight anymore!" Previous chapter. Next chapter. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, the hut behind him instantly collapsed. The bamboo forest that was like a paradise was completely destroyed in a short period of time. Jian Guishu clutched his chest, breathing rapidly as if he had an asthma attack. Anger, from the soles of his feet to his skull. Two children. Jian Guishu clenched his fists and roared, "Don't be presumptuous!" Buzz, buzz, buzz. The dust floating around suddenly trembled, and the surface began to be enveloped by the sword qi. "It's over," Jian Xiaohong said. "Grandpa is angry." Boom! An explosion came from the dust-filled area, and Shi Jingxian staggered out. At this moment, not only had her hair and eyes turned red, even her lips had turned crimson red. She looked devilishly charming and flirtatious. "Have you had enough?" At this moment, Jian Guishu walked over with his head lowered. His footwork was very stable, but with every step he took, his body would emit a powerful sword aura, as if his entire person had turned into a sword. As a sword saint, Jian Guishu's understanding of the way of the sword needed no explanation. In short, he was powerful. However, when he walked over, the sword force that had gathered around him suddenly flew out uncontrollably, circling behind Shi Jingxian and gradually condensing into a whirlpool. "This," Jian Guishu said in shock, "borrowing power?" Shua! Shi Jingxian held her sword horizontally in front of her, her two white fingers pressed against the surface of the sword. Her fiery red lips were chanting a strange language that no one could understand. Swish! 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 In an instant, the rotating sword momentum behind him suddenly condensed into 12 crystal-clear swords. "Tiangang sword art!" Jian Guishu exclaimed. Suddenly, he seemed to have understood something and said happily, "Could it be that Senior Gu used a special ability to store the sword skill in the Xianyuan divine sword, and this girl naturally inherited it after drawing the sword?" Jun Changshao didn't care about the sword skill at all, but he was more concerned about his seemingly bad situation. Swish! Swish! The 12 swords scattered and circled Go Sheng in the shape of a clock. "Retreat!" At this moment, Jian Guishu shouted, "Retreat quickly!" Perhaps because time was too tight, as soon as he finished speaking, he carried his granddaughter and flew into the distance. Although Li Qingyang and the others didn't know what was going on, when they saw the sword saint running away in fear, they all used their movement techniques and fled as fast as they could. Jun Changshao didn't move. To be exact, he didn't dare to move. The 12 swords were like 12 bombs hanging around him, giving him a premonition that they would detonate in advance if he moved even the slightest bit. "Palace Master Shi. It's me, Jun Changshao." Go Sheng stood in place, hoping to use his voice to wake up the evil Shi Jingxian. Unfortunately, the other party was indifferent. Jun Changshao smiled bitterly and slowly raised the ultimate immortal sword, saying, "In that case, boom boom boom. Boom boom boom." 12 explosions shook the ruins realm. The ruined sword saint, who had hidden in a safe area, spat out another mouthful of blood. There was no other reason. The bamboo forest was gone, the house was gone, and even the mountain where he lived in seclusion was turned into nothingness under the bombardment. Understood. This was the ominous sign that had arisen earlier. "Master," Zhou Hong said bitterly, "do you understand what this disciple once said?" "What was it?" It was best not to meet the patriarch. I understand. Jian Guishu clutched his chest and said, "This guy is a jinx." A mountain used to live in seclusion was razed to the ground by 12 consecutive explosions. However, when the dust settled and the airwaves weakened, the figures of Jun Changshao and Shi Jingxian gradually appeared in everyone's vision. They were suspended in midair, separated by a distance of 10 feet. One had disheveled hair and was in a sorry state, while the other had fiery red lips and was charming and enchanting. "Palace Master, she is so strong," Su Xiaoma said. "She actually beat the patriarch into such a sorry state." The patriarch was probably worried that he would hurt Palace Master Shi, so he didn't dare to be serious. "Impossible," Su Xiaoma and the others said in unison. After being together for so many years, they understood the patriarch's straightforward nature very well. If he could subdue Shi Jingxian with a heavy punch, he would have done it without hesitation. "Why?" Jun Changshao, who was suspended in midair, tore off the clothes on his shoulder and said, "Palace Master Shi, after turning evil, must you target me?" There were so many people present. In fact, Jian Guishu was beside him when he drew his sword. But she didn't look for anyone but him. For this phenomenon that couldn't be explained from a scientific point of view, Jun Changshao usually defined it as "I'm too handsome." Because Shi Jingxian raised her sword and pointed at him, saying coldly, "You are not clean." "The patriarch is not clean?" Li Qingyang and the others muttered in their hearts. "I take a bath in the morning and evening, brush my teeth and apply a facial mask before going to bed. How am I not clean?" "Your heart, your blood, your soul," Shi Jingxian said. "You are not clean." "Ha!" Jun Changshao laughed and said, "How do you know that my heart, my blood, and my soul are not clean? Do you want to know?" Shi Jingxian gathered the Tiangang sword intent into the weapon and said coldly, "Dig out the heart, let out the blood and pull out the soul, then you will see." "Come on." Jun Changshao tore off the clothes on his chest and shouted, "Let me see if you are clean or not." Whoosh! Suddenly Shi Jingxian rushed over. Her speed was very fast, but in this case, she had to use slow motion. One slowly raised her sword and stabbed over, the other showed his chest and didn't seem to intend to resist. Puchi. The scene that was originally planned to be slow for 10 seconds suddenly returned to normal. The Xianyuan sword, which contained the Tiangang sword intent, was directly inserted into Jun Changshao's chest, causing him to look down in a daze. "This woman, she is serious." "Patriarch!" Li Qingyang and the others exclaimed. Drip, drip. Blood flowed down the sword, and then splashed on the ground. Jun Changshao struggled to raise his head and squeezed out a smile. Is it clean?" Yu Shi Jingxian stood in front of him in shock. The hand holding the sword trembled slightly, and tears gradually gathered in her red eyes. "I'm sorry I couldn't help you resolve the strange attribute, and let you go crazy again. I hope my death can wake you up." Jun Changxiao's voice became weaker and weaker, and finally his shoulders slumped and his head lowered. "Patriarch!" Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji and the others screamed at the top of their lungs. Shi Jingxian let go of the Xianyuan sword, hugged her head with both hands and screamed in pain. Tears burst out of her eyes, and as the tears fell, her red eyes gradually faded, and her mind gradually became clear. Today, Jun Changshao died. Awakened the blackened Shi Jingxian. Just as the readers led by Little Du were excitedly typing, ending flowers in the comments section of the chapter, Jun Changshao, who had his head lowered from beginning to end, muttered in his heart, "This move really works." Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were still screaming in pain, but they all secretly said, "My acting is okay, right? Is it enough to tear my heart and lungs?" Chapter 1865. When the sharp blade attacked, Jun Changshao used hard to retract. He was already in a weakened state. How could he still fight Shi Jingxian? Don't ask. If you did, you would be a Taishan old man. What a joke. The only reason Jun Changshao was able to stand up like a man was because he had used the system's triple reset function. In fact, when Shi Jingxian suddenly raised her sword after turning dark, Sheng would have been cut into pieces if he hadn't reacted fast enough. Unfortunately, he didn't have many reputation points in his pocket, and contribution points were everywhere. Even if he cleared his 3 points and forcefully increased his combat ability, he still hadn't recovered to his peak state. Otherwise, he would have punched that woman to the ground. The only person who could stop Shi Jingshuan's madness was Jian Guixiu. Not only did this guy not help, he even borrowed the power of his sword. It was really adding fuel to the fire. There was no other way. Jun Changxiao could only play a show. He tried to use his own death to awaken the dark Shi Jingxian. This kind of lame plot was really effective. When Jun Changxiao's hands and head dropped, the last bit of consciousness in Shi Jingshuan's body that hadn't been extinguished suddenly counterattacked and successfully took back the initiative. Patriarch! Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others yelled at the top of their lungs. Because the performance was too realistic, the sadness was exaggerated to the extreme. The men were silent, and the women were crying. You killed my nephew. Gu Tianqing couldn't hold back anymore. He gathered energy in his palm and roared, Die! Dad. Gu Xiaoxi hurriedly hugged his father and said tearfully, Calm down, don't be rash. He was already dead. Who could still calm down? Sect Master Jun. Shi Jingshuan's hair and eyes returned to normal. She was already weeping like a pear blossom in the rain. Then she resolutely pulled out her sword and held it in front of her neck. I'll go with you. Pa. Just as she was about to slit her throat, a hand grabbed the hilt. I'm still alive. Jie. Shi Jingxian looked at Jun Changxiao in a daze. Gu Tianqing, who was held tightly by his son, was frozen in a state of struggle. He had clearly lost all signs of life, so how did he suddenly come back to life? At this moment, Gu Tianqing glanced at the Sect of All Time's disciples from the corner of his eyes, and realized that they were standing in their original positions as if nothing had happened. Junior brother Zhou's swordsmanship has become even more exquisite. I will definitely get a good ranking in the finals of the Universe Holy War. If there's a chance, I must spar with junior brother Zhou. Everybody was talking to each other, making Gu Tianqing feel as if he had gone back in time. All the disciples who knew Jun Changxiao well knew that he was putting on an act, and even cooperated with him tacitly. Only Jian Guixiu and the others believed it to be true. If the Academy Award was given to the Sect of All Times, they would definitely deserve it. Shi Jingxian woke up. Jun Changxiao, who had suffered a sword strike, was bandaged by Sun Bukong. Occasionally, he would grimace in pain when his wound was affected. Although he was fine, it definitely hurt. Especially when the strength given by the 3 values weakened. His entire body became softer than before. You don't even want your life for that woman? Rows of flowers walked in from outside. Jun Changxiao roared in his heart. It must be Big Mouth Su who spread the news again. One person. It was inevitable that he would encounter all kinds of misunderstandings. Only in this aspect would he not wrongly accuse Su Xiaoma, because it was really him who spread the news. Now the entire sect was talking about the patriarch sacrificing himself to reform the raging Shi Jingxian. Jun Changxiao stuttered. You don't need to explain. Rose of Flowers said. You just need to remember that you are the patriarch of the Sect of All Times and have a group of disciples to support. You must think carefully when you do certain things. Jun Changxiao was silent. At that time, he had already calculated the situation. There would not be any accidents, but he did not take the initiative to explain himself, because she was right. Rose of Flowers did not reprimand him anymore. After asking about his injuries, she left. Looking at the gradually disappearing figure, Jun Changxiao felt pain in his chest again. Patriarch. Sun Bukong said weakly. Mistress is jealous. Get lost. Okay. Night. Rose of Flowers sat alone in the room, staring blankly at the flickering light. In fact, she had been in the Sect of All Times for so long, naturally, she had heard the disciples talk about Jun Changxiao and Shi Jingxian in private, but she always pretended not to know and pretended not to know. Rose of Flowers would never be jealous because her husband had a relationship with another woman, or even do something unreasonable. After all, in terms of understanding, she was just a latecomer. She still remembered. When she married Jun Changxiao back then, She had also said that she did not care how many wives Jun Changxiao had. Rose of Flowers was a soul, and her mentality and thinking were different from humans. However, she was a woman after all. Plop. There was a sound of falling. Rose of Flowers collected her lost mind and spread out her spiritual senses. She found Jun Changxiao lying under the wall like mud. So she walked out of the room and asked, "What are you doing?" I didn't stand firm. I fell when I was climbing over the wall." Jun Changxiao grimaced. Rose of Flowers was speechless. "Why did you climb over the wall?" "Can you help me up first?" Jun Changxiao panted. It was obvious that he was so weak that he felt as if his body was hollowed out when he climbed over the wall. Rose of Flowers walked over, lifted him up with one hand, and placed him on the stone bench in the pavilion. Then, she sat beside him and said, "Tell me, why are you looking for me?" "That," Jun Changxiao said. "Are you angry?" "I'm angry. Actually, Palace Master Shi and I are not what you think. We are just friends. How can I stand by and watch when a friend is in trouble? If you were the one who lost your mind, I would also use my life to wake you up without hesitation." Such mushy words came out of Jun Changxiao's mouth. It was unbelievable. Ift. Rose of Flowers covered her mouth and laughed. "Hey," Jun Changxiao said frantically, "I'm here to apologize. Can you be more serious?" "I'm just angry that my husband doesn't care about the overall situation and is willful. Why do you have to explain your relationship with Palace Master Shi?" Rose of Flowers said. Jun Changxiao was speechless. Rose of Flowers leaned over and said, "Husband, do you think I'm jealous?" Jun Changxiao gave a non-committal grunt. "I'm not that narrow-minded," Rose of Flowers said. "Besides, my husband is not a womanizer." "That's good." Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief and said seriously, "Although I'm despicable, shameless, and especially handsome, I will never be half-hearted. When it comes to relationships, I will always be faithful." "I firmly believe that," the system said, "because your EQ doesn't allow you to do that." Rose of Flowers. Jun Changxiao supported himself on the table as he stood up and said, "Listen to me clearly. I'm not a cultured person. I can't say sweet words. Just remember that I only have you in my heart. There's no room for other women." Damn. Su Xiaoma, who was hiding in the dark, widened his eyes. Elder Wei, who was standing next to him, muttered in his heart, "I didn't teach you that." Chapter 1866. After Shi Jingxian woke up, she was unconscious for a few days. When she woke up again, she recalled the scene of her stabbing Jun Changxiao with her sword, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Palace Master Zhang Sunfanghua, who was guarding beside her, said joyfully, "You're finally awake. Is Jun Patriarch all right?" "He's fine. He's alive and kicking." That's good. Shi Jingxian looked at the ceiling. Waves of unfamiliar memories appeared in her mind, giving her a splitting headache. These images were very chaotic. She could only understand them after she sorted them out. If Jun Changxiao could peer into Shi Jingxuan's mind, he would definitely be stunned. This was because the memories that appeared were all what he had seen in the illusion before he inherited the Xianyuan realm. The difference was in the perspective. At that time, Jun Changxiao was more like a bystander, standing in the universe. The memories that appeared in Shi Jingxuan's mind were completely personal. In fact, that's right. The memories of the girl who was sent away by Gu Xianyuan. After she was sent away from the Xianyuan realm, she drifted alone in the universe. Later, she met Sword Guishu and followed him to the Guishu world, where she placed the Xianyuan divine sword on the wall of the secret room. Master said, "There are very strict requirements to control the Xianyuan divine sword. Perhaps, it will never be inherited by the world." In the dark secret room, the girl knelt on the ground and bit her finger to draw a blood-colored pattern. 1 day, 2 days, a total of 49 days. Every corner of the secret room and every stone slab was covered by the blood-colored pattern. The girl seemed to have used up every drop of blood. She lay powerlessly in the center. Her hand touched a certain spot as she said weakly, "I'm willing to use my essence, blood and soul in exchange for someone to inherit the Xianyuan divine sword in the next life." Whoosh, the blood-colored formation flashed. Gradually, the girl lying in the center turned into a stream of light that lingered around the Xianyuan divine sword, drawing out another special attribute from within. This was the attribute that existed in Shi Jingshuan's body and forced her to turn black time and time again. The two streams of light, one as gentle as water and one as fierce as fire, resisted each other in the beginning. They slowly merged and then flew out of the secret room and into the universe. Sword Guishi was unaware of everything that happened. When he walked into the secret chamber, the blood-red pattern on the ground had already disappeared, as if nothing had happened. In other words, the girl did not leave alone. Instead, he ended his life in a sacrificial manner. It was no wonder that Jian Guishu had been unable to find him in the following years, living in a state of self-blame. Speaking of the two attributes that had fused together, after breaking through the shackles of heaven and earth and fusing with the universe, they drifted in the endless void for countless years. One day, a black-robed man held it in his hand and said, "Dual spirit souls are extremely rare. Drifting in the upper universe will only lead to precarious situations. It's better to go to the lower world." Swish, under the cover of the divine power, the souls of the two souls merged into the lower universe. He seemed to have come to the right place, but also seemed to have been restricted by the rules of reincarnation. In the end, he fell into a certain plane, and was reincarnated into an ordinary family. Wow! Cries resounded throughout the village. "She's born, she's born." The midwife carried a baby out and said with a smile, "It's a girl." After reading up to this point, Shi Jingshuan's eyes flashed with anger. That ordinary middle-aged man named the baby Shi Jingxian, which meant that he was her father. "Father of my child." Jingshuan's eyes are so strange. A few days after the baby was born, her mother realized that something was wrong. Gradually, the news spread in the village that the baby girl was a demon. The Shi couple also spent their days sighing. After 1 month, little Shi Jingxian suddenly went crazy, which made them think of abandoning their daughter. In the memory, Shi Jingxian, who was still a baby, was abandoned in the wilderness for several days, until she was carried away by a kind old woman, who brought her to Miaohua Palace and took her as a disciple. Shi Jingxian stayed here. As she grew older, her eyes became more and more obvious. She was even secretly discussed and ostracized by her fellow disciples. Fortunately, there was Li Er. She had been protecting her as a senior sister to prevent her from being bullied by her fellow disciples. Li Er was the female disciple who once tried to stop Jun Changshao from getting close to Shi Jingxian. Later, Shi Jingxian slowly grew up and inherited the position of palace master. At this point, some readers might be puzzled. Didn't palace master Shi have an eye disease? Why did she have so many memories after she was born? It was a long story. In short, what could not be seen was the soul that was as gentle as water, and what could be seen was the soul that was as fierce as fire. A portion of the memories that Shi Jingxian received came from the girl who sacrificed herself, and more came from that soul. To be exact, the scene that she could not see was seen by another soul. "Is this my identity?" Shi Jingxian said in her heart. "In my previous life, I was also called Shi Jingxian, and my master was Gu Xianyuan. No, I have another identity." Shi Jingxian raised her hand with difficulty, and the Xianyuan divine sword appeared out of thin air. The artifact spirit of this sword. That's right. After fusing with the soul of her previous life, the special attribute that existed in her body was the artifact spirit of the Xianyuan divine sword. In short, in the past, Shi Jingxian sacrificed herself in order to fuse with the artifact spirit. Jun Changshao was powerful enough, right? However, because he was not fated to control the Xianyuan divine sword. The reason why Shi Jingxian could easily use it was because the other soul in her body was the artifact spirit. Palace Master Shi. Not long after, Jun Changshao pushed open the door and walked in saying, "You're finally awake." This kind of concern came from a friend. If someone insisted on interpreting it with another meaning, then it would be meaningless. Of course, This has something to do with the way the author writes. Therefore, I will explain the problem regarding Palace Master Shi and Go Sheng at the appropriate time. Jun Patriarch. Shi Jingxian apologized. I'm sorry. At that time Don't mention the past again. Jun Changshao interrupted, then hammered his chest and laughed. My body is very strong, nothing happened at all. Blood spurted out from the bandage. Jun Changshao hurriedly pressed his finger down and said, Congratulations to Palace Master Shi for inheriting the Xianyuan Divine Sword, and inheriting Senior Gu's Tiangang Sword Intent. I didn't inherit it. Modest. Jun Patriarch, half of my previous life was that girl, and the other half was the artifact spirit of the Xianyuan Divine Sword. Girl? Artifact spirit? Jun Changshao was a little confused. Shi Jingxian got off the bed, placed the Xianyuan Divine Sword on the table, and then told him the memories she had accepted. After knowing, Jun Changshao fell into silence. He himself was a transmigrator, and his brother Gu Xiaoxi had reincarnated many times, so this kind of thing was not surprising at all. Jun Patriarch. Shi Jingxian was silent for a moment and said, I sacrificed myself with the illusory spirit technique and merged with the Xianyuan Divine Sword's artifact spirit in order to find its true successor today. Seeing this woman staring at him, Jun Changshao said bitterly, It can't be me, right? Yes. Shi Jingxian nodded. Jun Changshao was silent. Shua. At this moment, Shi Jingxian raised the Xianyuan Divine Sword, grabbed Jun Changshao's wrist with the other hand, and said in a swearing tone, Today, as an artifact spirit, I form a natal contract with the patriarch of the sect of all times, Jun Changshao. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The air in the room was monstrous, and it spread around Jun Changshao's body. Shi Jingxian looked at him, and a gentle smile appeared on her face. Then she gradually faded, scattered into starlight, and merged with the Xianyuan Divine Sword, and began to form the most sacred natal contract. It's here, the system said. The host's natal weapon. It's just that. It could not help but roar. First it merged with the Rose of Flowers and became the Lord Rose. Then it merged with Shi Jingxian and became Jun Jingxian. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.